It should be recording now.
Yeah, it's recording.
All right, excellent.
Good.
Now you can share it.
All right.
Good to see everybody's faces.
All right, we're on question number 4 now.
Justin, we didn't see any of the first questions. We only saw question 1.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Okay, thanks for speaking up there. Here's question 2 is up right now. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Hang on a second.
Justin, I would read each question for people as well.
So did you say read the questions out loud?
No, I said just to answer them.
No, I thought.
Justin, I think you should read the questions as well as show them on the screen.
Yeah. Read them along as having it right there. When, where did AmpSurf start?
All right, we're on question 5 now. What country won the 2020 ISA World Adaptive Surfing Championships? Zoom testing.
Yep.
All right, question 6. List 4 AmpSurf chapter locations. And I do take points off for spelling. Just kidding. Question 7. You must be an amputee to participate in AmpSurf clinics, true or false? Question 8. True or false? You must be a veteran to participate in the VA summer sports clinics. Question 9. What does PIER stand for? Question 10 has to do with the TED Talk. Carly Rogers' goal was that every participant will become a surfer. True or false? And from the TED Talk again, why do they run? All right, now for multiple choice. According to Brett Cotter, the 3 keys to managing PTSD are, and then you can read the answers. There's A, B, C, or D. You can just write A, B, C, or D for your answer. All right, number 13, which statement about the PTSD Score Card is not true? And A, B, C, or D, you can read those, just write the letter. Number 14, what is not a PTSD trigger mentioned in the workbook? Number 15 is a fill in the blank, but for an AmpSurf instructor, what is the most important key to managing PTSD and why? Number 16, phantom pain refers to what condition or disability? Number 17, adaptive surfers with blank may need a helmet. Number 18, under what conditions can a plastic grocery bag help your surfer? Number 19, for this type of surfer, you should check the feet for injuries and use booties. And the last question is a doozy. List 8 conditions from the conditions and disabilities described in the AmpSurf Certified Instructor Program Manual.
Morning.
Good morning. Who's that, Dred?
Yeah. Sorry I'm a little late.
No worries. You just failed the test. Just kidding.
Morning, Dreads. Good to see you, Dreads.
No, the instructors aren't supposed to be on until 8:15 anyways, until 7:15 anyways, because
Oh, I think you said
you want to
8.
hear the introductions. You don't have to take the test as an instructor.
Gotcha.
And
Had some technical difficulties.
we are back on the timeline. So when you finish listing the 8 conditions and disabilities, if you have any questions about any of the questions that were on the test and you want to get them reread again, just speak up. I can put up a question.
Justin, can you go back to number 1?
Okay, who's the best surfer in the water?
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Justin, I missed the beginning, and I was just putting my answers. Sorry about that on chat because I just wanted to respond, but sorry I missed that.
Who is that? I can't.
This
see.
is Anne. Sorry. Oh, and I probably, oh, there we go.
I see you, Ann.
Okay.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning. Did you see, what question did you see to start with, Ann?
I think I did 7. I didn't record from 7, but
Okay.
I think I saw from 7. Sorry about that.
No worries. We'll get it back to you.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Outstanding. Well, go ahead and take a snapshot of your answer sheet and either text it or email it to me, and we will hold you accountable. Just kidding. This test is really not that big of a deal. We just want to make sure that you guys have a level of information before we start this class, so that we don't teach this to you. We discuss this with you, and it's much funner that way, and it's we get a lot more out of it. So that's the whole point of making this sound pretty academic. But anyways, we're going to move on to the introductions here. I'd like each one of you to give us in 30 seconds your name, location, where you're at right now, what job you have, and why you are here. And and I've got it. We're all going to go first. So really quick snapshot of our student population here. You can see that this is mainly an course. We've got a couple people in New York, somebody all the way up in Vermont, and then a bunch of people in the Boston and Maine. We have 3 people in Maine this morning, which is awesome. Trying to definitely build up our instructor corps up in our northern New England chapter. And then we've got somebody all the way from Encinitas, California. So that's our winner of who's here from the furthest away, until we found out that we have 3 students here from Iran this morning, that's amazing. We'll hear a little bit about that. So we'll start right off with Norm.
Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm Norm Staunton. I am that Vermont guy. I am the Director of Operations for Vermont Adaptive Team Sports. So I'm lucky enough to get to do adaptive sports year-round professionally in my day job. Grew up in Rhode Island, surfing in Newport and all the breaks down that way. And now whenever I can, I get over to New Hampshire and Maine and surf everything from long sands in the wall up to Popham whenever I can get over there.
Awesome, Norm. Thanks so much for being here with us this morning. I'm so glad you get to the course this year. So it's been too long since we've gotten here. So I'm really glad that you're here this morning. And Natalia, you're next. I saw you on there earlier, but you might be muted right now. There you are. You're not muted.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Hi all. Sorry for my video. I'm not sure what's going on, but this is Natalia Douglas, and I'm currently in Somerville right now, and I've been volunteering with the AmpSurf for the past 4 years, and I think it's time for me to take the course. My job is landscape design, so not much related to the what I'm doing here, but it's been a passion of my life, the ocean and people. So I grew up in Ukraine, and there's no ocean. And when I came to the United States, I fell in love. And after this, I'm going surfing. So learning and with the AmpSurf. So that's why I'm here to continue to be instructor.
Awesome, thanks. Okay, let's see, Sarah.
Hey, good morning.
Hi, Sarah.
My name's Sarah Dyer. I'm in Kittery, Maine. I spend a lot of time at Long Sands. I've heard some folks, I think Dana was driving there, so I'm curious about the surf report, but I work in project management during the day, but the reason I'm here is I absolutely love to surf. I got involved with AmpSurf, I think 2 years ago, met some awesome folks, and just saw how the participants just lit up in the water, and just realized how much I love being able to share surfing with anyone who's interested in it. So really happy to be here.
Awesome, Sarah, great to have you. All right, John Roberts.
Hi, John Roberts at Rockaway Beach, Breezy Point Chapter Coordinator. I've been working with AmpSurf, I guess, for about 15 years, going back to when we worked with the Wounded Warriors. I'm now also on the board of directors and basically here to support Justin and the great job he's doing setting this up. And I'm just using this as a refresher course.
Awesome, John. Thanks for helping us out.
Thank you.
Tia. Let's see. Dreads, did you see Tia on?
Nah, I didn't see her.
Okay. Bummer.
I'll text her and see what's up, because I talked to her the other day. She said she was going to be on.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So one of our Narragansett surfers, we've been trying to get in the course for a while. All right, Ann.
Good morning. My name is Ann McGowan Bresnahan. I'm a physical therapist, and I'm coming from that background really, and from a lot of volunteering with different organizations. AmpSurf is one that just the medium is just a wonderful way, you know, for everyone to have, first of all, just some great physical activity, but also you can see instead of the, sometimes the PT portion is a little dry, you know, and hard for people. They just so embrace their moving in the water. It's so free. So I am so glad to be here, and thank you very much.
Awesome, man. Thanks. Jason.
Morning, everyone. My name is Jason. I'm currently living in Charlestown, Rhode Island. I work as an environmental engineer at Electric Boat down in Groton, Connecticut. Last year was my first year volunteering with AmpSurf, and I had a great time meeting everyone and traveling around to the different events up and down the East Coast here. And I'm looking forward to becoming an instructor and getting more involved with this organization.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason. All right, Dylan. Dylan, I don't think Dylan's on. And I'm not surprised because he didn't register for the course. He just bought a hat through the course thing. So didn't have any information on him, but I sent him the course invitation anyways, but he's not here. Okay, Brian.
Good morning. My name is Brian. I actually live in Newmarket, New Hampshire. Not Newport, but I've been surfing for about 20 years. I work in Hampton as an occupational therapy assistant.
Oh,
and
cool.
I've been to maybe 3 or 4 AmpSurf events over the last couple years, and I've had a good time at every one, and I'd love to learn a little more and get to be able to have more of a role.
Great, Brian. Yeah, I think you were going to try to be in the instructor course last year, and somehow we missed you. So
yeah, so
have you here this year. All right, Elizabeth.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Elizabeth Watson, and I'm coming to you from Encinitas, California. It's bright and chilly here. And let's see, I work for the Social Security Administration doing disability hearings and all disability all the time. And I'm retired from the Coast Guard. My volunteer experiences, I've done some work with organizations called Surfing Madonna out here and Jimmy Miller, and then was going to work with Groundswell, but we had to shut everything down because of the, the COVID, basically. And so that's my experience there. And then as far as what brings, oh, I'm sorry.
You try it. Yeah, my old participant was blind. He's a World War II vet from Maryland. He was blind, 89 years old. Yeah, he didn't stand up, but he was riding waves on his belly and loving life. Yeah. Thank you. I'm going to stand over there and make sure.
Sorry, Elizabeth, I just muted Dana. He was talking to somebody on the beach there, but
all right, it looks like he's having a good time. The
Yeah,
sun's out. Yeah, it's really hot here.
Hey, I'm back. Sorry about that.
Oh no problems. It's good.
Did you want me to say something right now, Justin? Or?
No, I just
You're interrupting.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it's all right. No, yeah, it's good. And then as far as for me, this is aspirationally. I'm starting out with the organization. It's something I think it would be wonderful to do one day, is to be able to be an instructor. And so I thought learning as much as I can right now, even if in the beginning I'm in a supporting role, would be useful so I can set my course for the future.
Sounds good. It looks like either you have some really good lighting or maybe the sun is coming up in California already. Is that possible?
No, it's the lighting in my room. I wish it was. I don't have a shade.
Oh, man.
Isn't
So,
it bright? Yeah, sorry about that. I'll try to tone that down.
No. Light is great. I was feeling so guilty about you having to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning for this.
No, I got my coffee and I'm actually up pretty early normally anyway, so no big deal.
Okay,
All right.
awesome.
Good to be here. Thank you.
All right. Is Kit on?
Hi, good morning.
Yay, Kit's here.
Hi, everyone. I've been surfing up and down the East Coast. I'm currently at my parents' studying for my physical therapy exam. I have been surfing up and down the East Coast for the past 15 or so years, and participating in AmpSurf for the past 3 when I was up in Boston at school. And I've been really excited to do this course for most of the time I've been participating. So
awesome. Okay, I'm so glad that you're here. We need to have you on the instructor team for a long time. And finally doing it.
Inevitable.
All right, Kate, fellow Rhode Islander, are you on with us?
Good morning.
Hi.
Right. So my name is Kate Fuller, and I'm from Warwick, Rhode Island. And I currently coach gymnastics, and I've been doing that for about 4 years now. I work as a gymnast. I recently just graduated from the University of Rhode Island, and I studied kinesiology. And during my time there, I took a course called Disability Sports, and that's where I got to work with children with disabilities and taught them how to surf. So that's what really inspired me in ocean therapy. Yeah, I'm just really looking forward to working with everyone and volunteering, and it'll be a really awesome experience.
Awesome, Kate. Well, that's great. Can't wait to, I don't think we've met before. Have we met?
Nope, this is my first time doing like anything with AmpSurf.
Oh, great. Well, I'll be in touch later. We're actually going surfing next week, so we might invite you. All right, Colby.
Hey, how's it going? Hi, Kit. So Kit was actually one of the people that got me into AmpSurf about 3 years ago. We both graduated recently from Northeastern University, their physical therapy program. So I too am studying for the board exam right now. Justin Santamaria and I went to Hawaii about 3 years ago as co-op students, and that's where we both learned to surf. Justin ended up becoming an instructor, so I've been a water helper for the past 3 years. So I figured, this is a great time for me to get into the water and become an instructor.
Yeah, definitely, Colby. We're so excited about that Northeastern group of physical therapy students that are now becoming instructors with us and getting your physical therapy licenses. That is such a great skill set to have as an AmpSurf instructor. So we're really excited about that. I'm glad you're here for the course.
Glad to be here.
All right, Connor. Oh, I spelled
Hey
your name
guys.
wrong. Sorry about that.
That's okay. It's all right. No one else gets it right either. So
And I don't even know if you're really in York or not. I just kind of guessed.
So I am. So Dana, I'm going to be down there at about 10:10. So I'll look for you and I'll introduce myself. Yeah. So Connor Tracy, we're in York, Maine in the summer. It's Hartford, Connecticut the rest of the year. So have board will travel if anyone is in Rhode Island or New Hampshire that's going out for the day. Give me a call. I'm always looking for a reason to come join you. So I'm here because I'm a Marine Corps vet that's just looking to figure out another way to give back. I'm a manufacturing guy now, so I've moved around quite a bit, but the family is now stationary, and I've done volunteering in other organizations, both Marine Corps oriented and then veterans oriented, and then coaching oriented, coaching youth sports, high school sports. I always say not just my kids, but other people's kids. So I was looking for what is the next chapter, and I said, well, why can't I get smart about this and combine my surfing passion with the rest of the passions? So that's why I'm doing it. And since I moved to York in 2006, that's when I started surfing. My wife and kids have been gracious enough to know that if there's something to surf on, Dad's gonna go into the water. So that's my deal. It's good to meet you.
Oh, great to meet you too, Connor. Sorry about misspelling your name there. I am pretty bad at that, All right, is Jacob on?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jake Tomasi. I'm an engineer up in Nashua, New Hampshire. I got involved with AmpSurf about 3 years ago through Kate Carboneer. So I'm very excited to take the next step and go from volunteer to an instructor.
Awesome. And Kate's going to be Kate is with us this morning, so that'll be cool. So you've got, we talked about where the class is from, and actually I'm going to go back and find Tia, because I saw her finally sign in here. So Tia, you're with us?
I am. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the group.
All right. I'm Tia. I'm a student at URI. I am also a Navy vet. Found AmpSurf through various Google searches and decided to volunteer back in 2017, and I've been doing it, I think, every year since then.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us this morning. We've been really wanting to get you on the team here for a while, so glad to have you.
Great to be here.
In addition, there are some other people on the class from Iran, and I didn't have them as registered students, but we're going to go back with that later. But just know, you guys, my recommendation is just kind of observe the course and get what you can. Ask any questions if you need to, and we'll go back and figure out how to kind of pop off your training here in the future. But at this point, I'd like to introduce our instructors, and we've got instructors from all over the country also here. This is so I'm from Middletown, Rhode Island, and I've been on the board of directors for a couple of years. I'm the vice president of AmpSurf, the national AmpSurf board of directors, and been a surfer my whole life. I started out in the Marines and actually finished up in the Air Force, and have been doing this since I retired as a way to stay involved and give back. Greg, are you with us? I thought I saw Greg on earlier. Greg Johnson is our treasurer on the board of directors. He's from Pismo. He also spent a lot of time in New England with us, but he currently lives in Pismo Beach, California, and is doing some great stuff for AmpSurf. He'll be doing the safety instruction at the end. Rob is with us from Warren, Rhode Island. I saw you on there. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Rob.
Hello, everyone. I'm Rob Sanchez from Warren. I'm an Army veteran. I started with AmpSurf at a vet surf, and from the first wipeout, I couldn't stop laughing and smiling, and I got hooked. So now it's doing the full circle type thing.
Yeah, so Rob is visually impaired, and he's going to be teaching the visually impaired section of our course today. And then Jonah, you want to introduce yourself, Jonah? There he is.
Hi, I was muted. AmpSurf is a family affair for me. My daughter was the youngest instructor to ever go through the training program at age 11. That was in 2016. And she, of course, didn't really get a red shirt, but she kind of thinks she has one. But I've been with AmpSurf since 2016. My partner is an instructor, Elizabeth Kellogg, and I'm an engineer of energy and a professor, and I enjoy being part of clinics.
Awesome. Thanks for being with us, Jonah. Kate.
Hello. So I'm Kate. I'm originally from Chelmsford, Massachusetts, but I live in Pittsburgh now. I got started with AmpSurf in, I believe, 2011. And I became an instructor in 2012. I've been doing that ever since, and it actually got me really interested in prosthetics. And I just recently finished my prosthetics and orthotics school, my master's in Pittsburgh. And so now I'm working on becoming a certified prosthetist orthotist.
Awesome, Kate. And Valerie.
Good morning. Name is Valerie.
been with AmpSurf on and off since 2011 and with other organizations as well. Super excited to be here. I'm a physical therapist living in Oregon, but originally from San Diego, which I'm in San Diego right now. So really excited to kind of share some of my knowledge and start working with everyone.
Awesome. Valerie's also a new member of our advisory board of directors, and she's going to be heading up the Pacific Northwest chapter, which is the answer to one of the questions on the test. That's our newest chapter, is the Pacific Northwest chapter. So it's great to have you with us, Valerie. Also, Dana, we've heard from him this morning. Are you still with us, Dana? All right, he's probably catching some waves right now, which is good. I like it when he
No, I'm here, brother. I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Happy to be here. Happy to see all these amazing people joining in. Not only the ones that have been part of it, all the new faces and people that want to, set up the challenge of being an instructor. It's a huge responsibility, and so I can't thank you guys enough for being a part of it. It takes a lot of people to make this happen, and you guys are taking that extra challenge on. So super cool, and happy to be here.
Thanks, Dana. All right, Steve.
Hey, Steve Carboneer. I guess 2011, Kate and my other daughter, Annie, stumbled across a clinic in 2011, and they were like, Dad, you're not going to believe what we just volunteered at. And Kate took the instructor training class. I was there as well, and then I just started volunteering, and I don't have I'm not a good surfer at all, but confident in obviously getting someone up and getting them onto a board and having them meet whatever goals they're challenging themselves with in the water. I'm now a board member, national board member as well, secretary. And, as Dana just mentioned, this is a responsibility, it's, I know Justin will probably go into an overview of being an instructor, but it's a lot of pressure on you sometimes. You're responsible for people, you're responsible for your participant, you're responsible for your team, and you're responsible for safety. And it's a great role to have. And the number of people that we have on this clinic is awesome, because we always need competent instructors to help out. So thanks for everyone for being here, for taking the course.
All right, I don't see Brett on yet. So Randy, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Randy Woodrow. I'm a physical therapist at the VA. First 18 years of my career at the VA were at the VA in Los Angeles. I moved to transferred to the Boston VA in 2009. I'm the amputee rehab coordinator for VA Boston and New England. When I had my second total knee replacement, Kit was one of my PT aides from the Northeastern program. I've been in AmpSurf in some way, shape, or form since 2007. I think Dana and I crossed paths when he was a patient up in Bakersfield or Santa Barbara. It was before then. Anyway, jack of all trades, master of none. Happy to be here. Not really a surfer, but I've been around the adaptive sports community for probably close to 40 years. My background really is in adaptive skiing and snowboarding, not a surfer at all.
All right, thanks, Randy. And Justin Laporte.
Hey everybody, this is Justin. People call me Dreads, just it's easy since we have 3 Justins in the New England chapter. I started volunteering about a little over 4 years ago. Became certified instructor last year. Surfing for me is 100% lifestyle, as is AmpSurf. You will always see me there.
Awesome. Okay, so
Justin, Scott Barrows.
Go ahead, Dana.
No, Steve, Scott Barrows also.
Oh, Scott. I skipped him somehow. All right. Hey, Scott.
Hey. That's because I'm not a skinny little guy like the rest of you guys are.
Oh, yeah.
Scott, Scott Barrows, and I am from Newport, New Hampshire. I'm a retired safety engineer. I got involved in adaptive skiing. That's where I met Randy, and then got brought into the AmpSurf family, which has been really good. And as with Randy, I'm probably the only instructor who's not a surfer. But I can stand in the waves and I push it off and I understand the motion and stuff like that. So it seems to have been a pretty good match for me. I've been very fortunate with this. So that's about it. I've been involved, I guess, for about 6-7 years now, however that goes back to. And it's been a wonderful, wonderful experience. The people here, as Steve says, it's an incredible responsibility, but somehow the crew that's together, your crew that you'll be working with, as well as the other instructors, make it completely fun. And the information to make you successful is incredibly accessible. And so it's a very good environment to volunteer in.
All right. Well, I'm going to speed things up here a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and start off with Dana so he can get in the water. So AmpSurf history, Dana. We'll go back to logistics in a minute.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. So yeah, I mean, AmpSurf, we've been doing this since, and after being in the hospital 4 months, they'd ask me what I wanted to do. I said I wanted to surf. They said I wouldn't be able to do it. I called bullshit and hooked up with another amputee guy. And 2 days out of the hospital, I was on my first wave. Just rode a couple waves and laying down. First day, thought it was amazing. Second day, stood up for about 2 seconds and thought, hey, if a chubby little farm boy from Maine with one leg can do this, anybody could. And he wanted to start a group of amputee surfers to do competitions, but this is before Facebook. We didn't know anybody else. So I said, well, let's start a learn to surf program. And so we started. There was 4 of us. We brought in my prosthetist and another amputee. Did our first clinic in the fall of '03. Had 7 people come. One person came as far away as Florida, came out to Pismo Beach, had a great event, and nobody got hurt. Everybody lived. So we thought, man, we might have something. And from there, we started going mobile in 2008, started working with the VA as well, and went from teaching about, 10, 15 people a year to 100 plus. And then, you fast forward 18 years, this last year we did 1,000 sessions, 1,000 plus, I can't remember the exact number, but it was 1,000 plus sessions via 4 different chapters. And, we've had, our big, our call is, PIER, the promote, inspire, educate, and rehabilitate. The idea is, not only do we, get men and women and children living with different conditions and disabilities out in the water for their first time surfing, but we want to take them all the way to that pinnacle from where our origin was to start a surf team. And so we've had, before, there was a world championships of parasurfing, we had 5 people that came out and surfed with us, end up competing in the Olympics in different sports besides surfing. We were the first adaptive surf program ever sponsored by the U.S. Olympic Committee, and that was almost 15 years ago. And now, we've kind of come full circle on all that. This last March, right for the whole COVID thing, we were able to be the title partner and sponsor for the World Parasurfing Championships that brought together 130 athletes from 28 countries here in, there in La Jolla, San Diego, for the World Parasurfing Championships. And so for me, seeing all this, come full circle and being able to, sponsor, disabled, veterans and first responders to come to our clinics, to being able to, host, the pinnacle adaptive athletes from around the world is just, for me, it's a dream come true. And to see all you guys coming and volunteering and giving of yourselves and taking part and doing this training. I mean, it's a Sunday morning. You could be sleeping in. You could be just relaxing. And to see you give so much of yourselves and to be a part of it, it's just an amazing thing to have happen. And to see it just blossom like this is and it really just touches my heart. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot more history I could go into, but the bottom line is, it's grown from a very grassroots organization to a larger organization, and we're still grassroots. That's one of the beauties of it. We do so much with so little compared to some of our counterparts out there, that it's pretty amazing. It's all because you guys have given your time and your energy and your dedication. And I always tell people that us as the volunteers and everything, I think we get just as much, if not more, out of it as a participant. You can't help but feel good when you share that stoke with somebody for the first time. And so again, I just appreciate it, and I love you all for being here, and thank you so much. And there's my Reader's Digest for you, Justin.
All right, thanks, Dana. All right,
I'm going to go get wet. Peace, love, and happiness.
Have a good one. You can't be on video every day.
No.
Yeah, we had 2 virtual clinics on Friday and Saturday this weekend, and so Dana's been virtualed out pretty much. So he needs to get a surf break, and it looks pretty fun out there. All right, I'm going to switch over to Steve Carbonare.
So me again. So I'm just going to give an overview of a clinic pretty much. And you know what? There's a lot of chaos that goes into running a clinic. But we do follow a process. And when we do that, things go as smoothly as they can. There's always some things that need to be adjusted, and we need to be flexible on things. But the initial thing is permits have to be pulled. We always need to have a permit for a particular location. And, the best thing to do is actually have the permit with you at that day, just in case something comes up. Also, one of the hardest things that we do is pair the instructor with the surfer based on instructor confidence and level of expertise. Same with the whatever type condition the participant may have. We really want to try to pair the right instructor to the right condition. Where am I looking at? Okay, waiver. Everyone needs to sign a waiver that's associated with the clinic, whether you're a volunteer or a participant or an instructor. Everyone involved needs to fill out a waiver. And then it's the old fun van and trailer with all the stuff we have in there, merchandise, all the equipment and boards and rash guards and merch and pop-ups. So all that needs to take place and get onto the beach. I'm looking at faces here, and I know everyone has helped out in doing that kind of thing because we have to. Every instructor, I believe, should know how to do everything and be willing to do everything, but that doesn't mean that you will be doing everything. We as instructors need to be able to delegate to certain people. There's a lot of volunteers that are standing around and all they want to do is help. That's what they came to do. So we need to utilize all those volunteers to do the lugging and, bring the boards down. Again, people feel like they want to feel useful. So we need to give them something to do. One thing as an instructor, you need to be familiar with your surfers. So if you're not that comfortable dealing with someone with autism, read up on autism again. Know that you're going to deal with a kid with autism. If it's a spinal cord injury, there's a lot that goes into that. You need to be familiar with it. And one of the things we started last year, thank you, Randy, was a surfer evaluation form. So after every clinic last year, we started implementing it. Every instructor wrote up a little bit about their participant, what their level was, what you should know about them. There's a couple kids with autism that, one guy, I'll mention him, it's Aton. He's verbal. He doesn't speak, but he listens keenly to everything you say. And with Aton, if you don't tell him to stand up, he won't stand up. So every single wave, I took him one time, he rode 24 out of 24 waves, believe it or not. But every single time I had to say, stand up, Aton, and he stood up and rolled the thing in. So, there's little things that are written on these evaluation forms that's real helpful for you to just catch up and understand who you're working with. Where am I? When you get to the beach, we're gonna give you or set your surfers up. you know, you need to go over and greet them. You need to tell them who you are. Hi, I'm Steve. I'm going to be your instructor today. You know, depends what's going on. You need to ask them questions. That's probably what we're going to hear from the various instructors talking today about various challenges. It's asking questions the whole time, you know, so they're comfortable with you understanding everything about them. You know, if they, you can't touch them here, or if they don't like, you know, I don't know, they only want one person talking. And that's one of the things we talk about is, you know, the instructor should be the main point of contact dealing with the participant. But I mentioned familiarizing you. And then we go through a welcome, and you know, a welcome, and it's really running through the timeline and the schedule that we have. Again, some things may be a little more flexible, but you know, if we kind of stick to that timeline, then everything seems to go well. You know, there's a specific safety training. Usually it's Randy or Scott that would run a safety briefing for all of the volunteers, and it's imperative that they get to it and listen to it, because it's all good and important information. On the other side, it's a dry land surf instruction. So that's explaining what's going to be going on, how people can try to stand, and if they can't stand, how they may be riding the board, how to fall, you know, a lot of safety. And that's imperative also to have. And then literally we just go through the schedule, so people are understanding that there are heats. The way AmpSurf runs it, we're all in colored shirts. The red shirt is definitely the lead, and then there are heats all in a specific color. And, you know, we rotate the heats, you know, 10, 15 minutes a heat, and we need to say there's only one color in the water at a time, because there's a lot of people. If you picture, you know, 10 different surfers, they each have 3 to 5 volunteers. It's a lot of people in the water. So, you know, we really need to isolate only one group in the water at a time. We all need to be positive. We need to be confident. We need to let that person know that we're competent to take them out into the water. Because as I said earlier, it's a lot of pressure. You know, you're taking someone, let's say spinal cord injury, you got to get them, transfer them onto the board. Then you need to safely get them out through the wave break, you know, turn them around, get them on a couple waves, and the whole time being cognizant of their safety and your team's safety. So it is a lot of pressure. You know what? We learned a lot from our clinics. If anyone was at the massive thunderstorm that came over York a couple years ago, you remember that, Norm? And you know what? It was horrible. It was a major storm blasting above us. And you know what? We, as an organization, didn't handle it very well. We actually did pretty poor in that. It was chaos. But then after that, we put into a protocol and a process of what to do if we have such a problem. And you know what? Last year, we did have another thunderstorm in York, matter of fact, and we handled it seamlessly. It was great. And then we let the storm pass, and we had a super clinic. So, and then it's, you know, pizza and, you know, doing a whole closing. I like doing a closing because, you know, we recognize our supporters and sponsors. We give a couple of awards out. That's what we do. Some other ones don't do that, some other locations, but you know, we think it's kind of fun giving a couple of awards out. And then it's all that chaos, bringing stuff back in again, and getting it all back into the trailer. But again, as an instructor, you need to be mindful of your participant. Make sure that they're packed up, they're okay. You know, certain areas, help them get back into their car. You know, that's what your role is, more so than packing everything up, because there's a lot of volunteers that are there to be packing up. And then it's just put the keys in and go home. And what I always like to say too at the end of a clinic is, we only know what we know, and we don't know what we don't know. So we welcome feedback. The only way we're going to improve a clinic is if we, you know, hear what went well and hear truthfully what didn't go well, so we can improve on it. So there's a clinic.
Absolutely. Great. Thanks a lot, Steve. And we are running a little bit tight on time. So you basically used all of my time for my next class. I'm just kidding. So I'm going to make this a little more interactive right now. So everybody can unmute your microphones, and I'm going to ask some questions. Why did we have Dana talk to you guys today? Why do you guys care about the history of AmpSurf? Who wants to answer that question?
It's John.
You can't answer, John. You're an instructor.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I'll try to put the students on the line.
Yeah, that's good. No, sorry.
Hey, Connor here. I'll give you my takeaways. My takeaways is, founded for, founded by someone who needed it, right? And that's pretty awesome because 20 years or 18 years later, he's still doing it and it's still meaningful and it's grown that much. So, it's not coming from the top down. That's someone who needed the water, and that means it's sustainable. So that's pretty awesome.
This is Elizabeth. Oh,
hey.
Hi. I felt like Dana was there to set the tone for the event, and I think it was critical. So in addition to the history, you get a feel for what his mission is and kind of like I say, the tone and feel of the workshop.
Absolutely. Anybody else?
Yeah, this is Anne.
Hey, Anne.
Hi. I think it also helps us, we're always talking about the participants, and that was Dana. So it also gives you that insight because a lot of times, you may just feel like the teacher, but now you see how he got to be a teacher. So I think that was a great insight.
All right, great inputs. Thanks. I also want to say this class is really focused on you guys. So most of you have been water helpers and you've been on the beach and you've been kind of waiting around for people to tell you what to do. Some of you've been really proactive and just, pick stuff up and done it. But now you are going to be wearing a red shirt on the beach. So that means when somebody's walking down the beach and sees all these people doing something on the beach, and they're going to go, hey, what's going on? They're going to come up to you in a red shirt. They're going to realize that you're somebody that knows what's going on, and they're going to say, hey, what's going on? And you now, as an instructor, are an ambassador for AmpSurf, and so you need to be able to recite that history back to people. Hey, we're a nonprofit organization. We've been doing this since 2003. This is what we do, and basically kind of give the 15-second elevator spiel that can potentially get people involved, to spread the word, to get more participants to work with us, or more volunteers, or more sponsors, or donations. So now just kind of think of your role in AmpSurf, and so the history is something that you should know as a red shirt. So that's why we kind of put 10 minutes of it in. Of course, Dana sets the tone as the founder of the organization, and everything you guys said was absolutely right. But as you hear the rest of this course that we're going to be talking about, these different things, I want you to kind of focus on you now as wearing a red shirt, and what does this mean to you? So, for example, we know that Steve just talked about the logistics of a clinic and what happens at the clinic. Now picture yourself wearing a red shirt at the clinic, and all this chaos is going on around you. Well, now you are now a leader. You need to be able to basically come to the trailer by yourself with nobody else to tell you what to do, and set that clinic up with nobody helping you. But we don't really want you to do that by yourself. We actually want you to be the one that's really taking care of the participants as they show up, because that's your job as a red shirt. You're now completely focused on the participants, people with disabilities that are coming to surf. So you've not only got to get the clinic set up, so you've got to delegate and tell people in white shirts what to do. Hey, make sure you got signed up. Did you sign the waiver? Get that surfboard on the beach, set those tents up, tell them what to do, and tell them how to set the clinic up as you're taking care of the participants, which is your primary job. And don't expect me or Steve to help you, because we are going to be, trying to fly the plan into battle, and everything's changing. We've got this plan. Okay, we've got these 30 participants and these 15 instructors, and we're trying to match everybody up. And we've done that the night before, but then as people arrive at different times, the plan all changes. So we're trying to make sure that we don't put a 300-pound paralyzed surfer with a 110-pound female instructor with, you know, no helpers, you know. So we try to make sure we have the right instructor with the right participant. And so that's taken, you know, every bit of brain cells that we have. So this class is really, or this part of the class is really to let you guys know that you are now in charge and you have to make it happen. So think of that as we go through this. Any comments on, you know, setting up and what you're thinking about as a brand new instructor wearing a red shirt during the setup? One of the things that we're doing in New England now is as soon as you show up, we want you to put that red shirt on before we start setting up, so people know who you are, and so you're now an authority figure. So sometimes that means putting your wetsuit on and then putting your red shirt over the top of it and then doing the setup in rubber, which is not ideal, but it makes you visible. And a lot of times we'll keep the wetsuits down and put the red shirt on and then readjust it before we go in the water. But that's kind of the thinking there. Any comments or questions from the students on that philosophy? So the thing that Steve just told you was not because, I mean, you guys have all been at clinics before. You know how a clinic is run, and he did a great job of explaining all that and what's going on. But now think of it as you're wearing a red shirt, and that's kind of the whole change in perspective, or the new paradigm that you have. All right, so we're gonna go into conditions and disabilities. I'm gonna do a quick little overview, and what I'm gonna say is, you know, the reason that we had the homework is because we're not going to teach you about these disabilities. That's not what this is about. This is about teaching you, or, you know, having a little discussion with you as somebody now who's going to be wearing a red shirt, and now you're in charge of this person. You've got some people that came to the beach to help you today, and they may not be surfers, or they may be surfers. They may have done this before, or they may not have done this before. And so you're basically going to be thrown into the hot seat. But fear not, we are not going to take a brand new instructor who's never done this before and give them a very difficult case for the first time with no help. We try to match people and build their confidence slowly. So you will be prepared and confident by the time you're doing this. And if you're not, speak up, because our job is to really make you ready to do this. So let's see. So the first thing that you got to know is that no two people with disability are the same. So you may think, okay, great, I've got an amputee for my first student and also for my second student, so they should be the same or pretty similar. And that's kind of a mistake or an assumption that people often make. So go into every single person that you get assigned with just an immediate recognition that no two people are alike. Everybody's a snowflake. Everybody's different, and so you really have to get to know your participant. And as an instructor, your main job is to make them feel comfortable with you. You got to come across as being confident and proficient in instructing. It wouldn't probably be a good idea to say, "Hi, I'm Justin. This is my first time ever doing this, and these waves look pretty big today." You know, you want to start say, "Hey," you know, you want to start off and go, "Hey, how you doing? Have you ever surfed before? What are your goals today? That's great. I'm so excited. Are you excited to be here? Is anything making you nervous? You know, let's talk about it." So is there anything that I need to know about you that can make this better for you? I don't want to do, you know, I don't want to do anything that you don't want to do, type of thing, or I don't want to do anything that might hurt you. So you, another thing is, as an instructor, you may not really know what the person's disability is. We may say that this person has PTSD, but we don't really know any details about that as instructors. So you have a chance to kind of get to know your surfer before you take them out in the water, and that's really, really important. And so we're going to talk about conditions and disabilities. We're going to go through the 8 conditions and disabilities that are covered in our manual. That's not by any means an all-inclusive list, and as I said, no two disabilities are the same, even if they're the same disability. So, one thing that I'd like to say though, right off the bat, is language is really important. We don't, we'll do this through the class, and it's kind of bad example, but we don't want to say the paraplegic. And what are we going to do with the paraplegic? We want to talk about John. What are we talking about? Hey, your student is John, who is a person who is paralyzed. Instead of labeling them by their condition, we treat them as humans and people, and that have a condition, as opposed to the amputee or things like that. So think about that. Try to remember that, and that's something that we've been working on over the past 5 years, and it's pretty difficult, but we're getting much better at it. So let's see the schedule. One thing that's not covered is hearing disorders, and just so you know, about 90% probably of all veterans have hearing loss, and hearing loss is so I have hearing loss, so it's frustrating often for somebody that can't hear, and so a lot of times they will not tell you that they didn't hear something. So you have to, as an instructor, you have to really watch them and understand, and make sure that they are watching you, and kind of try to see if you can tell if they've understood what you said. And if you say, all right, get on the board, and they don't get on the board, or they say, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, or they say what, then instead of saying get on the board again, say it a different way. Say, all right, I want you to put your arms here and then jump up onto the surfboard. Use different words, because sometimes there's letters or sounds that people can't hear. So if you say the exact same thing again, even louder, they still may not hear you. So it's good to try to rephrase something if you realize that somebody's having a hard time understanding what you said. So just a really quick thing on hearing loss. People may not even let you know that they're having trouble hearing. So just, you got to be cognizant of whether people can understand you or not. Okay, any questions overall on what's going on?
Hey, Justin?
Yeah.
Can I just jump in a little bit on hearing loss?
Sure.
Okay, yeah, just a couple.
Oh, we're about 9 minutes behind schedule though.
Okay, just one sentence. Know if your participants do have hearing loss, to make sure to take their hearing aids out before they go into the water. That's critical, and sometimes it's forgotten. It's the only reason I wanted to interject, because those things are expensive.
Oh yeah, good idea.
And they may not appear to have hearing loss when the hearing aids are in. The hearing loss may manifest itself as soon as they take the hearing aids out. So before they take their hearing aids out, ask them, also too, they may have better hearing on one ear or the other ear. If you know they have hearing loss, ask them which side is easier for them to hear you from. That's it, over and out.
Awesome, Randy, thanks. I'm really glad you said that. All right, Scott, you've got it.
All right, thank you. I wrote some stuff up here. I'll try to be brief, but I do have some things to cover. My background with regards to autism, because I am a safety engineer, is the fact that my partner has a autistic son. He's 44. He's been with the Princeton Child Development Institute since he was 7. I've had the wonderful opportunity to work with people who are the groundbreakers in autism research. What I'm going to describe is sort of a really toned down version of what I've gained in knowledge in the last 15 or so years. So anyway, your typical autistic person is fairly healthy. They say they're a good cross-section of the population. They have high blood pressure. Some of them have heart attacks and things. But yet you will be dealing with people whose health is generally pretty good, different than some of the other populations. The population of autistic right now, or in the past, is broken down to about 80% male, 20% female. So most of your students that you're going to have there will be male. All right, they're healthy. Okay. There's a nice little write-up of autism on page 29. If you want to read that, that's fine. I'm going to cover the sensory issues because I think this is pretty critical. And basically, there's a couple of things you need to know about autistic people, both verbal and nonverbal autistic people, is the fact that they are they're very aware of their surroundings. Okay, so you can be teaching them today, and they'll come back in a year later, and they may very well remember. There's some cognizance there of what you've been doing. They have pretty good memories. They're also object-oriented. They generally have a goal or something that that motivates them. In the case of Shane, which is our son, it's food. Oddly enough, he's motivated by food. You offer him a Snickers bar, he'll do almost anything, including surfing and skiing sometimes. But you need to find this out, and the way you do this is you ask their attendant, their parent, whoever's with them, what motivates them, what is the goal, what would take that he's looking for out of this, and what would make him basically nervous. Because if you remove his access to this motivation, like with Shane, if you remove his access to food, or he doesn't know that it's around the corner, he gets very agitated, he's very nervous. So this is something you need to ask the parent or the attendant, because you want to make sure that you have this contact with it, or if you're not, you're going to be dealing with a fairly agitated young person. They're also aware, typically, that they're different. And they want the same things we all do. They want to belong. They want to be a part of something. They want to be successful in what they do. We can manipulate our surroundings to be successful in what we do. They're sort of stuck with their surroundings. And so they've got a certain, if you think of it as a bubble around them, you know, not in something that you can't intrude, but as something they have a world that they exist in very comfortably. And you have to kind of work within that world when you're putting on wetsuits, booties, or you're even addressing a board with them and things of that nature. You will need to be able to make it very comfortable. Dressing in things of that nature, you might have one of your crew actually everybody get dressed together or do something together so that you're all participating in this process of getting them to the water. Okay, so yeah, it's sort of like you want to, when you're dealing with the autistic student, you want to really make them part of your crew almost. You could involve the parent or the assistant or not. Some of them have very good relationships, and it's really on that day they may be really upset with mom or dad, whatever, and they don't want them in the water with them, but sometimes they're comfortable if they are there. I was thinking, and I wrote down, the object of AmpSurf should be like it is with Nessa. Something that the family can take them on and do as a family away from AmpSurf. We go to the beach, let's take Shane and go surfing with him. And so you're instructing him in the basics, which you may just be lying on the board and pushing it in or holding the board. For you instructors who know Aiden and Liam, just ignore anything I say about Aiden. So at any rate, but it's something that you might want to include the family in, but sort of you're going to need to get this awareness of whether mom is acceptable that day or not, or dad is acceptable that way or not. And it's not unusual to get them out there with you and the student and the board together so that they can actually understand how it takes and what you're doing to do that. Interesting thing, and this century, then I'll wrap it up and we can ask questions later. I'm trying to be quick about this, is that try to make it successful. Don't take them out in the deep water right off the bat, you know, unless they've been there a lot of times before and you've dealt with them before. If you're dealing with an unknown commodity, don't take them out to the big wave thinking, hey, man, I'm going to push him down the line and we're going to have a really good time and he's going to play with all these other people. Bring him in the shallows, do the white water with him and just get him used to the movement of it and things of that nature, and plan for success. And with the autistic kid, you actually have to plan for it, you know, I know who it is.
Steve or Justin will tell you you're an autistic or PTSD, whatever. But if you have an autistic student, try to get involved as soon as you can. Figure out what you're going to do. Plan for success. Start in the short water. Work your way up to big water if it's appropriate. But you want it to always be a very positive experience for them. You don't want to push the boundaries. You know, this isn't, the goals with this are basically comfort and environment, not so much that they want to stand up and compete next week. Okay. So, yeah. Yeah, Max, members of the crew show. Yeah, involve the crew. Involve your crew in when you're dealing with autistic kids. It's another thing. It's a sensory thing of the belonging. Okay, so if you want to, the takeaway from this, I guess, would be belonging. You want to make your autistic student feel they belong. They're part of the crew. We're all going out there. We're going to play in the water. You know, family. Get the family involved if it's appropriate that day, and that's just something you're going to have to figure out where you're getting dressed. Okay. And with getting dressed, pick a wetsuit that's a little bit large for them if you can, because you want to get them in that quick. We learned that in skiing. Putting boots on autistic kids is not fun if you're trying to fit something that might be a little tight. So it might seem uncomfortable to us, but to get it on quick is a whole lot better than aggravation is going to be when you're trying to slip into something tight. All right. Now I guess I'll just open it up to any questions that anybody might have about the autistic student.
I had a comment just to make, or a question for programming. I have some experience working with children with autism. My question was, we do a lot of work with them with like picture schedules that show, you know, like a first this, you know, then this, and they, because that's something certainly kids with autism like predictability. So they like a schedule. So I don't know if that was something that AmpSurf has ever thought about incorporating.
That's actually a very good comment. And the adult autistic, still at 44, Shane is still learning, and they do employ that. They have it's sort of a menu of pictures when they're cooking. You know, here's the macaroni, exactly. Here's the water, and things of that nature. You know, I imagine it's something we could talk about and see if we can put together. We could photograph it fairly easy. You know, yeah, that's it. Another thing that Shane does is he has a tabulation where every goal he makes in the process. Also, if you're doing that, gets a little thing, and when he gets done, he gets his reward, the motivation process. There's a way that he can track that through the whole process that might also be employed with these menu-driven thing. But yeah, it would be a menu would be very, very good. But you know, I'm trying to conceive of what we would put in it. Perhaps getting into the wetsuit would be a really good one, and that would be the end point of that one would be whatever the motivation was, and they could actually see. Yeah.
Yeah, my thought was just, and this is probably going further than we need to today on it, but I was just thinking that, you know, something that shows them like there's, you know, first wetsuit, then surfing, then pizza, something like that, just showing that like the wetsuit isn't going to be like we do this to get to this, so that they understand like that there's more to this than just getting this wetsuit on or
well, the danger of that one is with Shane is if he says he surfs and then they have pizza, when he gets out of that water, he's going to expect that piece of pizza to be sitting there, and that can cause some troubles also. You know, yeah, I would leave that one out. Although perhaps some other of his motivation might be appropriate with the end point once you get done in the water. So.
Can I just mention one thing? And it just came to my mind because I've been to the beach recently. A lot of times the autistic population really enjoy the water. I know some of the sensory things make them nervous, but when I was there, I saw this poor mom. He was gravitating, and they also don't know the fear factor. So this little guy was going into the water, but way beyond where he should have gone. And so just that people realize, because sometimes, you know, a lot of people are nervous. So, you know, you may have the board and you don't have to worry so much about them going past where you think they would. but it's just a thing I think to be aware, because like I said, this guy, he kept on going. You're like, oh my gosh, he doesn't realize how high the water is, and they don't, because they just really enjoy the water. So
I guess it should be brought up also in the sensory thing that the autistic condition, they have a tendency to want to know where they are. If you ever seen an autistic person slapping their face, or in shorts on a cold day sitting on the floor, it gives them the opportunity to know where they are in space and time, like that. And the water would be very dangerous because their feet will leave the ground. And they'll want to get their feet on the ground, and they may go in the wrong direction. And so that is, yeah, I would never advise letting an autistic person run out in the water unless they're fairly high functioning, which I think is still a good word. But, you know, it's, that's it. But yeah, they sometimes will do actions and things to identify where they are in space and time and things of that nature. So
all right,
just because they're slapping their face doesn't mean it's a negative reaction.
We're gonna need to move on. Scott, thanks a lot. That was really good stuff. These instructions will be on, so you can certainly use the chat box to hit any questions, and we might cover some stuff in the review at the end. But right now we got to move on to Kate. And Kate, you can go ahead and take the lead.
So I'll be doing some on limb loss. I'll be also, if Michael is on, we kind of worked on this a little bit together, because I am not an amputee. I just went to school for it. So I think that, as Justin said, the main thing with every population is no two people are the same. And even if you have two, so I'll stop for a second. BK below knee, AK above knee, upper extremity, you can have below, above elbow. You can have other levels as well, but those are some of the most common that we see. So if I start using those phrases, I'm very sorry. Just wanted to brief on that first. So even if you have two BKs, they might not experience things the same way. And talk to them about what their goals are, I think, is really huge. Not everybody wants to stand up and shred every day. Some people, they might want to just sit, they might want to kneel, they might want to be on the, talk to them about what their goal is for the day so that you can best accomplish that. As we mentioned a little bit before, getting in and out of a wetsuit is definitely difficult, especially if you have a prosthetic foot or some sort. Using that plastic bag is going to be really helpful to get it around that. Navigating the beach surfaces, various joints aren't going to act as our God-given ones will. So just knowing that things might be a little bit more uneasy, and especially if they haven't really walked on sand or in water as they will be, kind of just getting used to that is a little bit different as well. One thing that's really huge is prosthetic fit. You don't want water and sweat getting into your prosthesis, because it can kind of inhibit the suspension that keeps that leg on. So I think that if people have, they need to just make sure that their prosthesis is going to stay on for their time there, and to just kind of keep checking it. I know that Dana had an unfortunate experience with losing a leg in the water. I've heard of people putting like a pool noodle around the pylon of their prosthesis. I just don't know how that would work with walking in water. I'm sure that would feel a little bit different. Michael, do you have anything to add?
Sure. I'm not really a subject matter expert. I was injured in 2017, and I was a participant in AmpSurf that year, and then the next 2 years I volunteered. But the takeaways from my experience as a participant were being made to feel comfortable while I was on the beach. Like Kate mentioned, navigating the surface can be difficult. Having a prosthetic, you know, salt water and sand are not really good for anything other than playing in, and they can really wreak havoc with the device. So that was really important to make sure that was clean and taken care of. And then adaptations are really important too, because for instance, with me, I lost some range of motion and some inflection in the foot. So how do you get your foot around to actually stand up? Everyone's a little bit different. And Marcel and Natalia the first day that I was there really helped me with some great advice on how to get on the board and around the board with the limitation that I have in range of motion.
Can I say something really quick?
Oh, go ahead.
One thing that's, as somebody that doesn't deal with prosthetics a lot, so I know that prosthetics are very expensive, and some of them are designed to go in the water and some are not. So can you tell us a little bit about different prosthetics and maybe somebody coming to the beach for the first time and what considerations would be for that?
That's a really good point too. I have two. One of them is almost all carbon fiber, and then it has just 2 bolts, and that can go anywhere. It can be cleaned out pretty easily. I have another one that's a lot more kind of complicated in the ankle, but it can get destroyed by salt water and sand too. So maybe if someone is really enthusiastic about getting in the water, they might not be thinking about that. So probably a good thing to make sure that everything they have on their body is allowed to get sandy and salty, because it will.
Yeah, so to that, one thing that I think you should also do is talk to your prosthetist and say like, hey, can this go in water? If you have a microprocessor knee, that does not want to go in water unless you have a very specific one. And they might say to you, you know what, let's use some basic componentry so that you can do some switching around so that you can be able to do that if that's your goal, is to be in the water. Another thing is that if you are in salt water around sand of any kind, you should always chase it with fresh water. So after you're in the water, you should get out and clean it out with fresh water to maintain the components the best. Also, if you have like a cosmetic cover, those aren't friendly in water either because they get really waterlogged and really heavy, and the salt water can also ruin them. So those are also good things to keep in mind. Also, when it comes to componentry, and if someone isn't super familiar with prosthetics, obviously if you're above the knee, you do not have an anatomical knee, so you have a prosthetic knee. If you talk to Posey or Judy, they're all going to tell you that putting it on a certain setting is going to make it a lot easier. So I think that dry land practicing it makes that easier as well, especially with above knee amputees, because they're going to have to figure out, I think it's best to lock out the knee so that it doesn't give on you when you're surfing. But practicing that not only for them, but also for you as an instructor so that you can better understand how their prosthesis works in a more controlled setting on the beach before you get out in the water and have to try to tackle prosthetic issues out there.
I could say one other thing too, that sorry, I got really excited when I was there and I kind of pushed myself a little too far a couple of times. So maybe keep an eye on the person. If they start limping a little bit, they might be getting a little over enthused. And if there is a news team on the beach, be careful because Justin will put you in front of them.
So to the point of like not pushing yourself too hard and stuff like that, talk to every participant, talk to them and say like, hey, how are you doing? Like, truly, are you too tired? Are you too cold? How are we doing? Do you want to go get some water? One of the biggest things that I'm sure we'll all talk about at some point is that you may think that you're not dehydrated because you're in the water, but you're probably dehydrated because you're in the water and you're sweating and you're exerting yourself a pretty good amount. So make sure that when they say go get some water, to go get some water and Gatorade and try to rehydrate yourself. I think that's really important.
Another thing about individuals with limb loss, especially if they're new to surfing, you're using your body in a different way. When the surf session's over, make sure, especially if it's an older population who may have diabetes or peripheral vascular disease or some conditions where their sensation isn't really that good, make sure they check their skin. Because if you're kneeling with a prosthesis, if sand gets in it, You don't want to do anything that might compromise their skin, because that could just open up a whole world of hurt. So, you know, while you're rinsing off the prosthesis with fresh water, make sure that they have the opportunity to check their skin where their amputation is. Also, just to make sure before anybody gets in the water, just ask them if they have any open areas of skin or wounds or anything like that. I'm sure that'll be covered elsewhere by other people.
Yeah, and so I think also, as we touched upon with, I think you said with hearing loss also, ask them if they would prefer you to be on a specific side of them, especially if they're a traumatic amputee of any kind. They might also ask any participant if they have any other conditions that you should know about other than their main presenting condition that may be helpful for you to know. So I know some amputees that I've worked with are going to be weaker a little bit on one side. He was newer to an accident, so they might want you on a different side of them. They might want you in a specific place. So just, again, talk to your participant, talk to your team that you're working with, so that you can best help the surfer.
Awesome, you guys. I think we run out of time, but that was a great job. So next we have Jonah to talk about skin grafts and burn and blast injuries.
Hi, yeah, sure, thanks. One thing which I wanted to just mention about the prosthesis before I talk about burns is one of the things that I've noticed, particularly by Randy, is that she'll set up chairs closer to the water also. Usually we set up our camp kind of high up on the beach out of the tide, but depending on the tide, to have another set of chairs with some shade close to the water for folks with prosthesis. So that when they get out, they don't have to walk all the way back up the beach, have a place to rest closer to the water and be closer to being a part of the process, which essentially takes me into what burns are. You know, burns are the success of folks who have been burned is mostly emotional. You know, and that's what we do. I mean, really what AmpSurf is about emotionally supporting folks in their introduction to life, bringing them back into, and that actually helps their recovery. So really as an instructor with folks with burns, it comes even from your emotions, I think, to that person. Generally, burns are ugly things. Scars are they're horrific. So your face, of course, most burn victims will already be used to being looked at with disgust. They've probably passed that point. But understanding that they're looking into your eyes as someone who's accepting them. And when you have, as a instructor, the first thing I ask are, who are my participants today? Who's on the schedule? Which folks am I taking? And the introduction to that person, waiting for them before they even hit the beach, welcoming them and saying, hey, I'm your instructor today. I'm so excited to meet you. Is there anything you want to let me know that I should know today to be your advocate? Burns sometimes have the scarring of burns causes sometimes immobility. Scars can be the elasticity of our skin is reduced with scars. The sensitivity of our skin can be either reduced or increased. The person that we're helping has probably endured more pain than you could ever imagine. And in that recovery and possible multiple surgeries, the amount of basic PTSD that they have in their from their recovery, from their incident, but from their recovery. The recovery process is one of pain. So getting the, opening your heart to them and inviting them into moving on is really the most rewarding part of being a part of this program for me. And it shows in the participants. So I'll ask, so, you know, hi, I'm your instructor, so forth. What can you tell me that I should know? And let them help you. I almost never ask, how did this happen? I never, you know, I don't want to reintroduce them into the trauma. We'll talk about what the future of the day is going to be like. And really, you're a part of the process of their moving on back into the flow of life. So, questions about a wetsuit. Is there any pain putting on a wetsuit? How sensitive is your skin? How does do you have anything to tell me about the temperatures or range of motion that we should know? So I really leave it up to the participant to share, if they can, with us, and you know, move from there. You know, I could get into you know, the scars generally are have caused some immobility and so forth, but for the most part, the folks with this condition are psychologically traumatized and recovering. And their effort to do something outside of being immobile. We're talking about weeks and months in hospitals at times, depending on the severity of the burn. So this is possibly the first time that they've gone to the beach again. And so opening your heart, opening your ears, and making your face at ease. Showing your love without judgment or disgust, and being their advocate is really my recommendation.
Nice going, Jonah.
All right, yeah, that was awesome, Jonah. Is Brett Cotter on now?
He is.
Okay, great. All right, Brett, you have the floor.
Awesome, awesome. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Cool. So my background is with stress and PTSD and stuff. So I've been involved with AmpSurf for a few years, and that's what I'll be talking to, how an instructor relates to a new surfer, and how you could keep your mind kind of in tune with your surfer and having like a little barometer on what their experience is, right? So first, I just want to jump in by defining PTSD and stress, right? So PTSD is just our body's way of venting built up trauma, right? And stress is just a reaction to a perception of danger, all right? I feel it's super important staying in tune, like I just mentioned, with your surfer, what they're experiencing emotionally. Are they having a lot of fun, or are they in fear, right? Their face is a great gauge, okay? Their eyes and their mouth, their smile, if they're having fun, their face is a really great gauge. If you can't see their face, I want you to look for two types of body language, okay? I want you to look for, is the person holding onto the board for dear life, okay? That might be a sign that they're not having that much fun, that they're in a state of fear, okay? And also, are their limbs flailing, right? So that would mean they're trying to regain balance and their body's out of balance. So that is also another sign that they're not having fun, that they're in a state of panic or fear. And in the water, fear and panic is the biggest threat in any situation in the water, no matter what it is, right? So being calm will bring clarity. So I strongly recommend, before you get into the water with your surfer, having a conversation like this. So I'm going to model the conversation that I would love for you to have with your surfer, okay? Just before you get in the water. And just saying, hey, I know this is your first time going in, and I want to share the 4 most common stress triggers when you first get into the water, okay? The biggest stress trigger that everybody experiences the first time you're in over your head. Okay, that's a little scary. Then also, the next most common stress trigger is falling off your board, okay? The next common stress trigger is getting hit by your board and then taking on whitewater, right? Those are all scary situations. The thing I want you to remember is that I'm right there with you, okay? I'll be right there, and you'll find after your first couple of wipeouts that it's a part of surfing, and it actually starts to become fun once you let go of the fear. So this is how we're gonna let go of the fear, right? We have a process for managing stress in the water, and this is how I want you to handle it. When you do wipe out, okay, the first thing we're gonna do is hold your breath until your head's above water. The next thing you're gonna do, right, is you're gonna re-secure yourself to the board, okay? The third thing you're gonna do is start breathing deep and slow, okay? And then you're also gonna start to say, I'm okay, once per breath, okay? So once per breath, as you're breathing deep and slow, you're gonna say, I'm okay. And I'm gonna remind you how to do that. And then we're gonna catch the next wave, okay? So that's how we're gonna handle stress, all right? So we're gonna go through that right now. So we're gonna take 5 I'm okay, deep and slow breaths. So I want everyone, the instructors right now, to just do this with me, because I want you guys to be attuned to the technique if you haven't used it already. So what I would do is I would tell my surfer, look out into the water, see those waves, all right? And just imagine that wave right there just toppled you over. You are underwater, you're holding your breath, you're re-securing yourself to the board, you're above water now. And now's the time you're gonna start to breathe deep and slow. So we're gonna do that together. So I want everyone to take a few breaths with me and just repeat the I'm okay mantra. So taking our first deep breath, we're gonna take 5. I'm okay. Notice how your heart feels. I'm okay. Breathe deeply into your chest. I'm okay. Looking out into the water. I'm okay. Last one. I'm okay. Now, if you did all 5 breaths, you might have felt your heart rate relax a little bit, your body calm down a little bit. And that's the experience you want to guide your surfer through. If the surfer is, very excited, or you think they might be, highly triggered the first time they get in the water, they might tell you, I'm scared of going in the water. Then you might want to take 10 deep, slow breaths with them and have them say it 10 times so that they really feel the relaxation. Now, once you're in the water with them and they go through their first wipeout, obviously you're going to be right there for them, but you're going to model the breathing, right? When you see them a little panicked and their head's popping up above water, right, and they're re-secured to the board, you're going to model it, okay? So you're going to grab them, you're going to start breathing deep and slow, and you're going to say, I'm okay, right? So you're going to kind of get them into that mode, all right? By the 3rd or 4th wipeout, they should be really good at addressing their stress, okay? So this is also a lesson in life, because they'll be able to take that technique and use it whenever they get stressed out, okay? Then you're gonna quiz them, all right? So right before you get in the water, you're gonna say, okay, what's the 4 biggest triggers? In over your head the first time, falling off your board, getting hit by your board, taking on whitewater. How are we gonna handle it? Hold your breath till you're above water, re-secure to the board, breathe deep and slow, once per breath, I'm okay. That's how we're gonna handle it, okay? When you get out into the water, you remind them gently. In the rare case that someone is having a prolonged PTSD reaction And it is rare when they're in the water. Justin and I were talking about this last week. But if it does happen, I want you to give them an option. Just casually say, hey, you want to go hang out on the beach for a little while? They're most likely going to say yes. All right. You could even guide them and say, hey, let's go hang on the beach for a little bit. When you get to the beach, just ask them, what looks like the best spot to relax? I'm going to get you some water. And then you just hang out and spend some time with them. So that gives them decision-making power, right? And it actually allows them to experience their fight or flight reaction. When they're stuck in the water, that's when the stress just continues to build. But they actually get into flight mode because they're leaving the situation, okay? And they're making decisions every step of the way. So within a few minutes of being on the beach, getting them water and just hanging out with them, most likely that's going to calm them down. That's going to diffuse their stress reaction after a few minutes. So that's the way I would handle it. If you guys have any questions, feel free.
Brett, that's really good. We've got some scenarios later on that will bring this back up again. But and I really appreciate you coming on and talking to the group, everybody. Brett's here from New York. What part of New York are you here from today?
So I live in Rockland County, which is near the Tappan Zee Bridge, but I'm in Long Island today. Wilsonburg. Yeah, I'm at my in-laws today. So.
All right. All right, yeah. Brett.
Thanks so much for having me, guys.
Thanks. All right, Randy, you are up.
Good morning. Can you guys hear me? Okay. So I'm really stoked to be speaking after Brett because he kind of talked about some stress management things, and now I'm going to talk about MST, which is military sexual trauma and sexual trauma in general. The one thing I want to point out is that this is a really wonderful forum to have this type of training. When we get to the beach, especially when we get to the beach the first time, it's chaos. With this, one person speaking at a time, one thing's happening at a time. That is not going to happen when we get to the beach. So like everybody said, you know, kind of addressing the chaos is one thing. Another thing I just want to drill home a million times as everybody else is, we don't talk about handicaps, disabilities. We try as much as we can to use person first language, and I talk about living with a particular condition, but everybody screws that up, myself included, so I apologize. Each person is a subject matter expert in their own condition, in their own life's journey. But when we have surfers come to us who have been victims of military sexual trauma, we may not be aware of that. If there are surfers coming to us from the VA, if it's a VA event, we may or may not know about it. It may or may not be in their problem list, and we may or may not be able to share that with you, the instructors. If it's something that you need to know about, or if it's somebody coming not from the VA, we'll do our best to tactfully let you know that there may be some issues. Not all sexual trauma comes from people of the opposite sex. You know, within the VA, we've seen every possible combination, especially with a larger transgender and non-binary population. Sexual trauma really is elevating in the world, and it's something we need to be aware of. When you're teaching somebody to surf, you are up close and personal. You may be kind of touching them in ways that, you know, you wouldn't be doing in regular life. As with our adaptive skiing and snowboarding, I'm going to use my dog Boomer here. Oh, hi Boom. Anyway, you may be positioning shoulders, knees, hips. If there are any other conditions that you're working with, you may have a student who has limb loss, but you know what? Your student may be the victim of MST or other types of trauma. So the best thing to do is to really just ask open-ended questions. You know, how can I best teach you? Kind of give an outline about what is involved with the newbies on you know, learning how to surf. Is it okay if I show you, you know, how to be comfortable on the board? If I show you how to do the pop-ups? You know, there may be, even if the student is kind of prone or on all fours on the board and you're standing over them, there might be the perception of kind of that you're taking power over them. I'm not going to teach you what's in the manual. There's a really nice overview that one of my colleagues provided in the manual about, you know, power and things like that. The best thing I can say is be aware, be intuitive. Some cues that you might take from them. Eye contact. Are they engaging with you in eye contact, or are they looking away? Is their voice, do you hear anything? Do you pick up anything in their voice that might indicate fear, apprehension, nervousness, anything like that? Are they engaged? You know, did they appear to be engaged when you got there in the morning? Good morning, so-and-so, how are you? And as the surf session is going on, they become a little bit more removed. You know, you're all very, very intuitive people. Always listen to the little voice. You know, if you're thinking that they are just not comfortable with something, you know, if you feel like something's derailing, and this goes for any lesson, stop the lesson. Just kind of stop, and what Brett said, do your breaths. I mean, I've heard him speak a couple of times, and I'm bringing this into my physical therapy practice. I have a couple people close to me who have real anxiety issues. I'm going to introduce that to them. Another thing that we've done in the past, it was, I don't know if it was AmpSurf or Waves for the Braves. We had a group of female veterans. Primarily, we ended up finding out afterwards that they had all sustained some sort of MST, but they were all there for different impairments. And we ended up taking 4 or 5 women vets just kind of off to the side to a different part of the beach with a bunch of women instructors. I think Kate was involved in that. Natalia may have been. This was years ago at Nantasket. And we just did kind of a little mini women vets surf clinic. And it was great. It was a really nice confidence booster. It was just, you know, we were part of the group, and we were a little bit doing our own thing. You know, as with anyone with any impairment, no 2 people are the same. No 2 people experience limb loss the same. No two people experience visual loss the same, or hearing loss the same. It really is what we can do in this very chaotic day when we've got 30 students and maybe 100 volunteers, how we can make that the best possible experience for that one individual who is really, you're responsible for their care and for their surf instruction, and to make sure they have a great time. That's it, my 8 minutes.
Awesome, Randy. Good job. All right, Rob, I think you're up next, right?
All right, hello everybody, I'm Rob. I'm covering visual impairment. I also have a hearing deficiency, so I'm gonna touch on that a little. A lot of people, when they first take out their hearing aids, it takes a while for them to readjust till they get some of their hearing back, because they're used to it being amplified. And I had this happen the first time I did AmpSurf. I took them out. People were talking to me. I had no idea. All of a sudden, somebody's touching me, scared the life out of me. And I was like, oh, are you talking to me? Because I didn't register yet. And so now I always say, listen, I'm taking my hearing aids out. It's going to be a few minutes till I readjust. So that's a good point. If you start talking to them, they might not be having a stroke or something. It might just be they can't hear you. All right, with visual impairment, always remember, as everybody keeps saying, person first. Remember, I'm a human first, you know, then a veteran, and then a parent, visually impaired, whatever. Always person first. You want to be addressed as a person first too, not something you do. Never touch somebody without asking first. Don't do the grab and pull, or I will show you, and grab onto them to show them. Ask, is it okay if I adjust your body to show you? If you're demonstrating, if you're comfortable with it, say, if you want, you can feel it, the position of my arms, or the way my legs and my hips are, so they can figure it out. Everybody sees things completely different, visually impaired or not. You just say, hey, you know, what would you like to share about? You know, would you like to share something about your vision, what you see, what you don't, what works with you? Some people are very auditory, and some you have to be very descriptive when you describe everything. But we're all different, and so you just ask. And if they're there, that means they took a big step, and they're trusting you. So give them the respect and just ask them what works for them. Um, Always be aware of even if it's not your participant, if you have a blind or visually impaired participant in the next lane, be careful. Because as some people know, I've gotten clipped by the surf on the side of me because they were so excited and so into it. They got too close and I got cut on my face because from the surfboard because they were cutting into my lane. So always be aware of that. Even if it's not one of your participants, if there's somebody out there visually impaired and they're near you, make sure you know that. Give them a little extra room for safety. Any questions?
That was just a flesh wound, Rob.
No, but I had to grow a beard to cover the scar.
Yeah, I was the guy who pushed another surfer into Rob at surf a couple of years ago. So we've been good friends ever since.
And I had permission to tell the story. I didn't blindside him.
He never let me forget that.
You remind me of it all the time.
So one thing we're thinking about doing is having a special jersey like they have for skiers, blind skiers, so everybody on the slopes knows, hey, we've got a blind skier. Let's not cut right by them. We're thinking about doing something like that for our blind surfers, so that everybody has awareness that there's somebody out there that is really not going to be able to protect themselves or avoid a collision if something's happening. It's going to be up to everybody else to avoid that. So Rob, as an instructor, I just assumed that everybody who was blind couldn't see anything. And now that I've done this for a little while, I know that that's not true. And also some people are born blind and some people become blind late in life. And those are completely different scenarios also. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, there's a lot of people they were born with a eye condition and they might have gradually lost their sight. They might have prosthetic eyes they look due to cancer, or someone like me had an accident when I was in the military. The people that are born without vision or lost it at a very young age, they learn things differently. Like, for instance, when you're looking at a table, they will first learn about the leg of the table, and then the next piece, the board across, and then the top, where people that have vision, they learn the table, the whole table, and then you learn about the leg and the boards. So it's a completely different way of learning. So you just want to be very descriptive and explain to them in detail if you can, but try not to get too little crazy. And like I said, the most important thing, if you're going to touch them, get permission. Because when people touch me, a lot of times I don't realize it's coming. I will jump out of my skin. And I have slapped people because they just touched me at the right time in the wrong spot. But if people lost this through trauma, that's why I love this I'm okay process. Because they might have a panic attack. Something they hear or see or notice might trigger them. So you have to be aware of that too. But most people with visual impairments, especially if you're taking this step, they're willing to talk and work with you.
All right, Rob, I'm going to go ahead and move on because we're getting way behind here. But thanks so much for sharing with us, and we'll text you any questions if we have any. So let's see, we have Val, I think, is up now.
Hello. All right, so today I'll be talking about brain injury. Brain injury basically, right, is a broad term for an insult to the brain. So you can have an acquired brain injury. You guys can hear me, right? Okay, yeah. You can have an acquired brain injury from like a stroke or a tumor or toxins, but more often than not, we associate brain injury with a traumatic brain injury. So from a fall or hit to a head. especially with our veterans or military, may be blast related. So according to the VA, about 60 to 80% of soldiers who've had a blast injury may have also sustained a traumatic brain injury. So kind of keeping that in mind. And again, motor vehicle accident, whiplash, so things of that sort. Regardless of the mode, the outcome of the damage to the brain will result in some type of diminished or altered state of consciousness, and also some type of cognitive and physical impairment, right? So it doesn't matter how they sustain, well, it does matter, yes, absolutely, how they sustain the brain injury, but really what you're gonna wanna pay attention to is how they present, how did that brain injury affect their function? I think a common theme that we've been kind of hearing is communication. So communicating with the surfer, with maybe the family member or even the caregiver on what impairments to look out for. So do they have some kind of balance deficits, maybe some behavioral or even visual and auditory, some physical limitations, and even asking them like, how do they learn best, right? So brain injuries. So there is a wide range of brain injuries ranging anywhere from mild to severe. One thing to also take note is that a concussion can be considered a mild brain injury, mild TBI. So it is one of the most common types, and a participant may not have necessarily lost consciousness with a concussion, but just kind of taking note that a concussion nowadays is considered a mild TBI. So the thing with concussions too, I think a lot of the times we're more familiar with concussions just because it's something that a lot of people sustain. So being aware, and I think I'll go into a little bit more detail on the helmet issue later on, but again, being aware that a concussion is also considered a mild TBI. So as far as tips of working with a participant with a brain injury. So first off, you want to limit the amount of distractions, which is going to be hard in our environment, right? So we're going to be outdoors. You have the ocean in the background. You have a large crowd, maybe other beach goers. This might be a completely new event to them. There's a lot of excitement, anxiety going on. So trying to do your best to maybe set aside the participant and their family members and even some of the water safety help that's going to be with the surfer a little bit to the side, to a place that has less distractions is going to be really beneficial when you start your instruction. So when you are starting your instruction, and I think Rob kind of touched on this a little bit, standing on their kind of quote unquote good side. So again, talking about brain injuries being different, and depending on what part was affected, they may have some type of visual or even auditory impairment. So a good example of this is one of my best friends. She had sustained a traumatic brain injury in combat. And when she surfs, she actually surfs with a helmet all the time, anytime she's in the water. She had me one day actually write on the side of her helmet, "If you can read this, you are too close." So at the time when we were writing this, we're kind of laughing about it, but it's true, right? Like if the participant can't hear or see on one side, that can potentially be a safety issue. So kind of keeping that in mind, asking again the participant or the family member caregiver if there is one side that's better to stand or approach. Okay, so when giving instructions, you want to make sure that one person is speaking at a time. You want to make sure that it's slow, it's simple, and it's short. So you want to be concise, but not too overwhelming or overloading. And then in between instruction, you want to make sure that you pause momentarily so that they can kind of take in all this new information. A good way of maybe seeing if they're understanding is asking them to maybe perhaps verbalize or demonstrate back. And then if you need to ask, you can also repeat instructions if it doesn't seem like maybe they're not quite understanding. But again, the one thing is safety. So I think taking care of all the safety instructions on land is going to really help and translate as best as best as possible when they're in the water, right? Again, going back to communication. So communication is going to be the biggest thing. I'm talking openly about their comfort level in the water, their level of abilities, whether physical or even fears. This is going to help kind of tailor your instruction to meet their individual needs, which is going to be really, really important, right? A few other things. So balance. You might see a participant that has sustained a brain injury that usually has some type of balance issues after they've had the brain injury, and maybe on land it may not seem as apparent, but once they start stepping into the ocean, all that extra stimulus from the waves coming in and out, the unsteadiness of the bottom of the ocean floor might actually exacerbate their unsteadiness and increase like loss of balance or whatnot. So a good tip is perhaps standing close by the participant, making sure if they're okay with it, having your hand there to add as support or even a shoulder. Because the last thing you want is right when they start walking into the water is having them really get unsteady and then fall right even before they get onto the board. So kind of keeping that in mind. So another good thing to kind of pay attention to is the mental fatigue portion. So a lot of the times a participant that has sustained a brain injury, there is some sort of mental energy that becomes impaired. So we all know, right, when the mind goes, the body goes. So when you start to notice mental fatigue, that can influence how well they perform in the water. So just kind of observing, watching signs. Maybe they're not smiling as much. Maybe, you know, they're talking a little bit slower. So if that's the case, you know, letting your participant know, like, hey, let's head back onto shore, rehydrate, let's take a quick break, things of that sort, because they might not necessarily tell you, like, hey, I'm tired, I want to go back in. So looking out for signs of mental fatigue. Lastly, the helmet issue. So I'm a big advocate for using a helmet, especially with a traumatic brain injury. But just know that the helmet doesn't necessarily prevent a concussion, right, or brain injury. You fall hard enough, you're going to get dazed, especially if you're falling off the board and there's a shallow bottom, or if there's a board coming at you. A helmet will only prevent about 85% of concussions, but for the most part, the helmet is there to prevent laceration or even fractures of the skull. An interesting fact that I just saw or just read is that 37% of injuries surfers sustain are from head and neck injuries. And then of that 30% of head and neck injuries, over half of that is from your own board. So again, keeping in mind, allowing some space in between all the surfers, and then going over and demonstrating and making sure that they know how to safely wipe out, right? Knowing how to protect their head if they happen to fall off the board is something to absolutely go over in detail with them. I do have a lot of other stuff to talk about, but if anyone's interested, just message and I can send some information on that.
Wow, thanks, Val. That was the best
that was great.
traumatic brain injury class we've ever had. One of the great things about doing Zoom here is that we're getting the experts. You know, we were just chatting in the background about the history of this class. We used to be in the back of a trailer with basically one person kind of reading the manual to a group of people that are all freezing to death in the back of a trailer like in March. So we're really enjoying the improved quality of this Zoom meeting. So hopefully you are too. Next, we have Steve to talk about probably our most challenging surfers. Oh, go ahead, Ray.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Some people, and I just typed it, will, and I have my own very strong feelings about helmets and I'm a proponent, but some people feel really claustrophobic or pressure on their head from a helmet. Some people have hearing problems with the helmet. How do you address that? Because sometimes I don't have a good argument for wearing a helmet, and it's been contentious.
Right. So I think that's a really good question. I think one thing is definitely explaining the reason for the helmet, but also to support the whole situation, you using a helmet yourself, right? You and the water safety crew can use a helmet so that maybe the participant doesn't feel like they stand out. If it's more of a hearing issue, which I haven't really dealt with in the past. Randy, I don't know if you've had experience or any other instructor has any experience with that. Usually, again, I haven't really had any issue with a participant being willing to use a helmet. The other thing, if they are like, if you wanted to maybe give an example, so explaining how, again, there's that pro surfer, right? Owen Wright, who sustained a traumatic brain injury, and he surfs with a helmet. He won the title, I think, was it last year, with a helmet. So kind of like maybe encouraging and motivating in that sense, like, hey, you know, even professional surfers use helmets, and it's a really cool thing. But the most important thing is like it's helping to protect you when you're in the water, because we want you to leave this event with a really good experience, and we don't want to exacerbate any symptoms. We don't want you to leave here injured or hurt or worse off.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Thanks, Valerie.
Any other questions for Valerie? Okay, then I'll take over. I'm taking over for George, who should have been here, or I actually had an injury, and so I'm taking over. But yeah, there's a lot of great information, obviously, in the manual itself that I'm not going to be reading for you. But as Justin said, some folks with paralysis that we take out are definitely our most difficult to certainly take through into the water, and again, the whole safety thing. As a number of people have mentioned today already, no two are the same. You know, it really does. A lot of people, I don't know, it just varies. They vary so much, you know, from quadriplegia to paraplegia. You know, we have some people that are very able to get, let's say, on a board themselves, and some that are not. So again, this has been mentioned with everyone. It's asking questions, right? It's asking them how you would like to help them. Can they, you know, get onto the board themselves? And they're going to share, well, yeah, I can at least get it on the board if I can, you know, position myself this way. Great. And then other people are like, no, I'm going to need 100% help. And this is definitely the group that has the most number of volunteers. Sometimes this group has 2 instructors, which is helpful. You know, so it's the process of asking questions, how to transfer, you know, are they in any pain right now? You know, talking to them about their bathroom routine that they're gonna have to take care of. And most everyone who's coming to the beach knowing they're gonna be on the beach for a while, they go through the routine already. But you know what, you need to ask these questions. You need to ask how best to help them. You know, how best, are there certain areas that you shouldn't be touching, or, you know, do they have sensitivity in certain areas? All those things have to be talked about and asked as you're dealing with someone who has paralysis. Spasms are something that come up all the time. And I don't know if Kate's on here anymore, but, you know, we have a guy, Eric, who is so able. He's a paraplegic, I believe, right? And, you know,
yes,
he's
paraplegic.
Thanks, Greg. He's, you know, so able in the water, but he sometimes has spasms that are hard to control. And, you know, that's something that you need to ask and be aware of. We have a certain transfer style. And this particular condition and category is so much better when we're on the beach going through it rather than reading and listening to me talk about it. You know, this one is really the one that you need to be hands-on with and, you know, showing how to transfer. We have a certain transfer method to get, you know, people from their chair into a beach wheelchair, down to the water, sitting them in the water, propping them up so they're safe. Someone's behind, and then we actually roll them onto the board so they're facing the water. And it's a great process. Carrie Callahan, if you know Carrie Callahan, she runs Spinal Cord Empower Spinal Cord. They have a different process, but it works great too. You know, they literally take someone right from their chair to the board and then pretty much carry the board like, I'm going to say like a casket because that's what it looks like. And they walk them all the way down to the water. And it's, you know, you need a number of people, 4 people on each side, you know, so it's a pretty big group, but it's the way she's been doing it. And it's a pretty good way that we've adopted here and there, depending on the person. Wetsuits. This is, you know, Justin will go through the questions. This is definitely one where some of those baggies work great to have them, you know, get into a wetsuit. Definitely the wetsuits with zippers are easiest for this group too. And we have a number of wetsuits that have zippers, and that's, you know, I think it was a trial and error of trying to do things. We're like, wow, it's so much easier when you're trying to put someone with spinal cord injury into a wetsuit. Booties definitely needed here because they typically can't feel their lower extremity. And, you know, that's a big point. There's a question that was asked as well. But, you know, this is also a group that you need to physically check things. You know, one of the things they were talking about in the manual was, you know, having a catheter that's kinked and kind of noticing what signs are for that and actually checking, you know, having them check, or you need to check this because there's going to be some, the problems develop from that. You know, noticing their skin, as Randy mentioned with the limb loss, really getting to see their legs. I had one, I remember it was a Wave for the Brave, and, you know, these beach wheelchairs that we use have big rubber wheels with sand on them, and it's sandpaper, and you need to be conscious. I remember I was pushing someone and someone was like, wait, his leg was like on the wheel, and we had like 3 feet and someone noticed it. But had they not, you know, I wasn't checking, and, you know, the person certainly didn't feel the sandpaper wheel on his leg, and that could have been a problem. So, you know, that was a good lesson for me to these are certain things you need to really recognize, because, and it's a visual thing. You need to kind of make sure that, you know, let's say their legs are not rubbing up against the wheel, you know, as an example. Sometimes even, you know, I remember someone dragging and, you know, they had boots on, but their foot was dragging on the sand. Well, you know, again, it's an observation. You need to kind of notice some of these things. So sweeping on the board, the zippers, the sandy wheels I mentioned, you know, as I just said too, check and feel and observe. You need to really be physically looking at signs for these for folks with these conditions. And again, ask questions, how they're feeling, notice, you know, hypothermia could come in and, you know, their lips are turning blue. You really need to recognize something like that. And this is the time where, when you show up at the beach and you realize that you're going to have, you know, a various participant with paralysis, you need to share it and communicate with your group too. Not only that person, I know we've all talked about this today, but you really need to engage your team because it's crucial. You know, you're going to have 6 people, maybe 7 people in the water versus 3 people in the water with, you know, with some other participants. So you're going to have a bigger group that, you know, you need to make them feel comfortable that you guys can do this. Because as I said in the very beginning, this, you know, it's a lot of pressure as an instructor, because you're responsible for people. And when you're responsible for someone that can't stay on the board on their own. Wayne, we all know Wayne, you know, once Wayne says, if my legs or hips are off to the side, I'm done. I'm going over. There's no stopping me, you know? And there is a lot of pressure taking someone out through the wave break safely. You know, you do have to, you know, hold the back of their legs going through the wave break. This is a tandem ride. You know, again, when we go onto the beach, we'll be sharing all this again, but this is where the instructor rides on the back of the board with the person as well. They'll let you know for the first couple times taking one, you need to ride with them. And then, you know, as they get more comfortable, you see how they're going. You know, there may be those times where you let someone go, and then now we have people that are just like, I'm on my own, let me go, and we send them. But, you know, it is a process. We need to start a little more safely and then kind of go to what level they have. So, again, this is a lot easier to talk about when we're at the beach and we really can kind of show what needs to be done, definitely for the transfer, how to hold someone on the board when you're taking them through the break, and definitely how to tandem ride and how to do the transfer. So these are the hardest, folks, but you know what? We do have a good process in place of how to safely take people out and let them have a blast on the water. So that's really all I had.
Hi, this is George. I want to say thank you, Steve, for covering my section. I had surgery 2 days ago and sustained a head injury as well, so I wasn't sure if I was going to be fully functional. But I've been here the whole time and enjoyed you doing this portion for me. I'm a full-time x-ray tech, and I deal with spinal cord injuries on a daily basis in my job. And Steve is absolutely right. Some of my most challenging patients are going to be people with spinal cord injuries, and I deal with them on a daily basis in my job. If I could just add a thing or two, this is really where it's really helpful to spend a little bit of time up front to find out what their capabilities are. You'd be surprised, even paraplegics may have some control in their fingers. So spend a little time finding out what their capabilities are. And if they could feel like they're part of the ride or contribute to it, they'll feel a lot much better, even if they can just grip the board a little bit. Also, getting paraplegics or quadriplegics into position is going to be your biggest challenge. Yeah. Props are going to be your best friends. Yeah. Pillows, sponges, wedges, pool noodles. Ask them, hey, what works best for them? Anything that's going to keep them in position and on that board safely is your best friend. So take a little time up front to find out what works best for them. Thank you.
Thank you very much for interjecting, because yes, we do have all those props. We have one prop that's called Wayne's prop, you know, and then we do have wedges and things that we use, and they're absolutely needed. And you know what? We had Tina, who is, again, basically below waist. She wasn't comfortable on the board on her stomach on a prop. And, you know, she said her back would really start to ache. And she decided that she would tuck her legs under and, you know, hold the board in a like crouching position. And she's like, you know, that felt so much better on her back. So certainly asking them what best position is comfortable for them is absolutely paramount to asking questions and things. So thanks for jumping in.
One thing I'd like to add is that we've been doing sit-down rides a lot more, and this is the group that benefits a lot from sit-down rides. So we have some bigger, wider boards that have more stability so that they can sit on the board, and then we definitely ride in on the back and kind of keep them in position as we're riding on the back, and we'll show some video of that later on in this session. But yeah, this is a great thing. So what I want you all to realize is, on the very first day you come to the beach, we're going to set you up with a very big person that has no movement at all, and we're going to cut you loose and let you try to handle this on your own. And that's not really going to happen, because this is something that you're going to build up to. And we do use 2 instructors. In one of your 2 sessions as an instructor under training, post this class, you know, we're going to pair you up with some of these difficult cases and with a very experienced instructor, and you're going to get to watch them, and they're going to work with you, and they're going to take you through this with real participants, not just the stuff that we're going to practice on the beach portion of this, but we're going to really get you up to speed on this. This is really the capstone of being an AmpSurf instructor. So, and you know, it's not for everybody. I mean, if you're a 110-pound female, you probably will not be leading a lot of complete paralyzed surfers in this. And you know, we've got tons of stuff for you to do with different types of trauma. We are so happy that we have so many female instructors in this course, because we are very short female instructors, and especially with some of the conditions, female surfers, we're getting a lot more female participants, and we don't have the instructors. So it's good for us to be able to try to pair up females with females. It makes them feel more comfortable. So just wanted to add that. At this point, we are very fortunate to move on to Greg Johnson in California to talk to us about one of the roles that you maybe find yourself in as a brand new red shirt.
Okay, good morning. I don't even know what time it is here, 6 something. First of all, I know you guys have been in class here for a couple hours, right, Justin?
Yeah.
At this point, let's all just get up and do something. Wiggle, dance, turn around, stretch, do anything. Just get up and kind of revitalize real quick. Stretch out. Okay. I think that's good to do every once in a while, especially if you're on a Zoom call and everything for a little bit of time. My name is Greg Johnson. I try to get to both coasts for whatever events I can get to. I've been a volunteer with AmpSurf for 10 years. I'm on the board of directors. I'm also the treasurer, which doesn't automatically make me a brilliant accountant, but keep the books going in the right direction, managed to raise a decent amount of money to keep all these people in the water. The first thing that I do with the safety briefing is make sure that we separate ourselves from the other group. So you're talking with the other instructors, maybe volunteers that this is their first time that they've ever been to an event. You're also talking to volunteers that potentially have been to, you know, multiple events. And, you know, I'm looking at the screen and I recognize a number of people like John Roberts in New York there. Hey, John, good to see you again. I know John's been to, you know, at this point, what, you know, 150, dozens and dozens of events. If you guys could, I know this is asking for a little bit of trouble, but if you guys could take yourself off mute and just let me know how many clinics you guys have been to so I can get a flavor for your previous participation levels, that would be great.
John here. It hasn't been hundreds, Greg, but it's been a lot. I've been involved since the early days with the Wounded Warriors.
That's awesome. Okay.
Hey, Greg, this is Justin Dreads.
Hey, man.
I've pretty much been to every single event for 4+ years on both coasts.
Okay, you're a slacker. Next.
Yeah.
Who else?
Hi, I'm George.
Hey, George.
Justin introduced me to AmpSurf 4 years ago after I retired from the Air Force. That's how him and I met.
Right on.
I got my instructor certification about 2 years ago, and I live in Florida, so I come and go as I can. But I've been doing it for about 4 years now. Thank you.
Okay. Who else?
Connor Tracy, boot rookie.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, same. I've only been to maybe 2 or 3.
Okay, great, Sarah.
Hi, Greg. My name's Brian. I've been to, I think, 4 events, and I did go to the famous York thunderstorm one as well.
Oh, those are fun. Yeah.
Hey, Greg, Jake Tomasi. I've been to about a dozen events over the last 3 years.
Yep.
Greg, I'm Norm up in Vermont. I've done probably 10 or 15 events over the years. Also,
right, Norm.
Also worked with special surfers out of the Kittery area. But I also do adaptive sports for my day job. So I'm around all the time.
Yeah, that's great, Norm. Thank you.
I've done about 10 sessions with AmpSurf, but I've also done adaptive sports sort of things like soccer programs and stuff with kids with disabilities. So.
Oh, awesome. Great. Okay. Who
Hey,
else?
it's Colby. I've done about, I'd say, 6 to 8 over the past couple of years.
Great. Great. Okay. Who
Ann?
else?
And
Yep. Hey, Ann.
hi. I've done about 3 or 4 with AmpSurf and a lot of other adapted sports, being a PT, like a lot.
Great. Okay, who did I miss?
Hi, Greg. This is Jason from Rhode Island. I did 3 AmpSurf events last year.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Who else?
Hi, I'm Elizabeth, and I'm brand new to AmpSurf.
Okay, Elizabeth, thank you.
Who else might be brand new?
Yeah.
There you go. Connor, yes.
Connor.
Elizabeth, Kate. Good.
Okay. Kate, are you brand new? Brand new?
Yep, brand new.
Okay, great. Okay, did we get to everyone? I don't want to leave anyone out. Okay, that's like my whole 8 minutes. But
Are you counting the virtual ones?
No.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'd love to hear from anyone that's on the call and wants to be an instructor.
Well, Sakare is brand new, right?
Hey,
Could
this
be.
is Natalia. I've been for the past 4 years, most of the clinics.
Great, Natalia, thank you. Okay, did I get to everyone? Everyone want to chime in that chimed in? Yeah, and Randy's a rookie too. She's only been doing this for what, 27 years or something?
Sorry,
So the first thing that I do for the safety briefing is going to do, I'll do it for you guys. This program absolutely comes to a dead stop if we don't have volunteers come out to the beach. So the first thing I say is, thank you for coming out to the beach. And I'm going to say thank you guys for coming and listening and taking this course. And you're already level, your participation level with AmpSurf is much appreciated. And this program does not exist without you guys volunteering. So thank you very much for your time. I did take notes so I can stay within my 17 minutes of allotted time. So we talked about a lot of serious stuff. And to me, the most serious thing that we can help people understand from a volunteer level, whether they're experienced instructors, first-time volunteers, or people that have been doing this, dozens and dozens of times, is if our athletes feel like they are safe, they will have the best time probably in their life. And you talk to participants, I see Rob shaking his head. You talk to participants from a couple years ago, 8 years ago. I just went and visited a friend of mine who's now a friend in Dallas, and he, I think, did it for the first time over 10 years ago, Jace Wheeler. And he'll tell you it changed his life. And it changes people's lives because they might be doing something new, they might be doing something for the first time. But in the end, they felt safe in their environment. You've had some subject matter experts come and talk about some very, very serious things like Brett did and like Randy did. And is Valerie still on? Yeah, Valerie. So these are really important aspects to understand each individual and what their challenge is. And I think we're all challenged to some degree. If they feel safe, they will have the best time. So it's figuring out their equation for feeling safe, and everyone's going to have a different level of that. Some people are like, hey, look, okay, I'm a quadriplegic, but I do water therapy. I'm in the pool all the time. Whereas, hey, I don't even like to take a bath, kind of thing. So you have these these broad strokes. So each individual person needs to feel safe. So I know it's page 5 and page 6 of the instructor manuals. I'm sure you've read it. But the things that I really like covering are the actual logistics that's happening that day on the beach. Is the water rough? Is it ridiculously calm? Is it cold? I'm in California. The water temperature here in sunny California might be 60 degrees. Might be. So we have, wetsuits that we wear and everything else like that. We want to make sure that they feel safe. So one of the things that we talk about in the safety briefing is environmental awareness. Is it hot? Are they going to get too hot? In a wetsuit, you're going to bake sometimes. So making sure you're checking in with your surfer's safety is paramount. Where is the board in the water? It should be facing one of two directions, going out or coming in. If it goes sideways, a wave's going to get it and it's going to slam someone. I've been the recipient of that. I also want to talk about something that we always talk about on the beach, hydration. It's super important to remind your people and your instructors, hey, you got to drink. Even though you're in the water a lot, you actually get dehydrated a lot easier. What I call onboarding and offboarding, which are my own terms of getting people on the board safely and get them off. Our injuries, a lot of our injuries occur closer to the beach. People are either getting hit by a board or they're so excited they ride the board right up to the beach and then they jump off, Dana Cummings included. Okay, so I'm going to say, just remind your volunteers and, you know, instructors, hey, have a program where you're saying, go down to a knee when you're getting in close. Dana, just as a side point, I don't know if he's still on here or not. He's actually snapped off his prosthetic leg on the bottom of the ankle part because he rode the board in, jumped off the board onto the beach and snapped off his prosthetic. Ask him about that sometimes. Proper escalation procedures. A lot of times Randy is in charge of safety on the beach. I've seen her appear on both coasts, so you might see her anywhere you go to do a clinic. Yay! She's one of our first points of escalation. A lot of times it's Steve on the East Coast or Justin. Understand what your points of escalation are if you do have an issue with anything that happens that you deem, hey, this might be a problem later. Someone has an abrasion like Justin talked about, and we had, who else talked about that? Was that TBI or SCI that we talked about with abrasions? Really important to report anything that goes wrong to the point of escalation, whether that's Steve, whether that's Justin, whether it's Dana, whether that's myself, depending on what coast you're on or where you're on. Just so if it comes up later, you know, we know about it to some degree. Has anyone ever witnessed something happening injury-wise at a clinic at all?
Yeah, Greg, it's John. I just wanted I wanted to come back to that as far as injuries.
Yeah.
If you're not paying attention, I'm big on safety and being aware. And one of the things I teach the instructors and volunteers is if a board is lost, yell out, board, board, board.
Right.
One of the clinics that we were doing, you know, usually I'm kind of orchestrating it from the beach. And I was over at one of the lanes, maybe in ankle deep water. And you were talking about before, you know, with the lines, make sure everybody's separated. Well, the board comes over and I don't even see it. It cracks me in the ankle.
Yeah.
And nobody yelled board, board, board. Well, the story is this. I hurt my ankle. I just kept going. And for about 6 months it hurt. I finally go to an orthopedic doctor, said, well, you had a stress fracture.
Oh, great. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I'm still hurting with it too. But that's the point. It can not only be the participant, but also the volunteers if everybody is not cognizant of what's going on.
Right. No, that's an excellent point, John. And I make a big deal out of it when I'm in the water. When I'm doing the briefing about doing the board. And if you've been to one clinic, you've probably heard that, you know, people yelling, because remember, we don't use leashes, right? So athlete falls off, volunteer gets athlete, board just goes wherever the ocean decides the board is going to go. And that sometimes means it's coming into the beach, sometime quickly. You know, I think every instructor here, and Steve, I can attest to this, we've all been smacked, and Justin too, and Randy and John and all these guys on here. We've all been smacked on the back of the head, the shoulder. I got one in the jaw once. It was actually a perfect alignment, turned around at the perfect time. It was like I was getting punked or something. Anyways, if our guys and girls, if our participants, athletes feel safe, they will have the time of their life. I know way over time. I appreciate.
Hey, Greg. One quick thing. We do have, every chapter should have it, but we do have an accident report that should anything happen, we need that accident report just to document it. As something as small as, you know, a skin abrasion, or something as big as Melissa getting popped in the face and then having the fire department show up, you know?
Did you guys talk about Melissa getting popped? Because that was, to this day, I'm having huge guilt issues about that. And there are a lot of lessons learned that I will share quickly.
Yeah.
Did you talk about that?
No, but it's a good one because it covers a couple things.
Okay, it covers a couple things. So Melissa, as those of you who know, is just an extraordinary human and a very good, accomplished surfer as well. And it was on our hottest day, was it last summer or the summer before? We were in Narragansett.
She's a below knee amputee.
Yeah.
Throw it out.
Yeah. And she was doing her thing, surfing away, and she fell off the board and the board knocked her in the eye. So she came out, "Are you okay?" "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. Keep going." Oh, hang on. Sorry.
Well, hold on. I'm going to interject. Melissa that day was so excited. It was the first one of the year. And anytime someone didn't want to go out, she's like, "I'll go out." You know, so she just kept going. It was like one heat. She'd come out and there was a vacancy. She's like, "Okay, I'm going to go again." Let's go ahead.
She was running on adrenaline. She was doing great. She was locked and loaded. She was in her zone. She was catching waves. She was doing wonderfully. She had this thing. She got knocked in the board. We're like, "Okay, just rest for a little bit." She rested for, if I said stay out for 5 minutes, she stayed out for 4 minutes and 59 seconds. All she wanted to do was surf. So she went back out. And, you know, like she just didn't stop. Long story short, she became dehydrated, ended up we ended up having to take her. Unfortunately, that was the day I don't think we had medical, but we had the services of the Narragansett lifeguards who were wonderful. And I'm like, you know what, I'm making a call. I don't know, it was me and somebody else. We took her into the lifeguards. She sustained a concussion, and she had actually driven down that day and was unable to drive home. So it's, you know, she was locked and loaded. She was in her zone. She was doing great, but retrospectively, we should have kept her out of the water for a little bit longer and done a better job at concussion screening. But she was just, "I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine." You know, her balance looked good. You know, how many fingers she got that. She wasn't really exhibiting any signs immediately of a concussion, but sure enough, she did. And I still feel terrible about that. But when that happens, and if you're not strong enough to pull your student out and say, "Look, we've got to call a timeout. We've got to really assess this," call one of us, because it happened to us and to Melissa. And, you know, she was very proud of her black eye and her shiner, and we had a few laughs, but it could have not gone that well.
Excellent example, Randy. Thank you. Okay, my 4 minutes is up probably, Justin, but I did what I could.
Yeah. So great job, Greg. You bring so much to the program. We're so glad you're here with us. And
awesome.
Thanks for
Great
doing
to be
the
here.
taxes.
Thank
like
you again.
The taxes are super fun this year.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Dreads, what do you got?
Hey. All right. Hello, everybody. I'm going to do a quick little sound check here because my laptop died this morning, so I'm using my phone. I just want to make sure everybody can hear me when I step away. So just do a here because I got this all situated outside with there we go. Hey, can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Good?
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know why I'm yelling.
So everybody, I'm Justin Laporte. People call me Dreads. I'm just going to kind of walk through the dry land brief here. First of all, I'm just going to kind of approach this as if you guys were all here as participants. So any of you guys been here before surfing with us? We're super stoked to have you here. Just going to give you kind of a run through. Essentially, AmpSurf, we define surfing a wave is anything to the best of your ability, whether it be laying down, whether it be on your knees, whether it be crouched, whether it be standing up. So the whole point here is to have fun. Everybody is going to ride a wave differently. You know, success is defined how you perceive it, and we will do the best to make sure that you have, you know, the best time in the water, and to really kind of obtain the therapeutic effects that we all get as surfers. Because anybody who's here who's actually doing this, in addition to participating, whether the volunteers, the instructors,
we get so much out of this as well. It really is kind of a total holistic healing process. So some of the things we need to kind of pay attention to when we're out there during this is that hypothermia, obviously it's been discussed briefly, but a lot of people don't realize that it's polar. It's has not only to do with cold, but also heat. So given the conditions, please pay attention to that. You know, hydration has been touched on a pot. You know, lots of sunscreen, you know, your standard beach precaution. One of the things that we need to be really concerned about is obviously the transfers when you're coming off a board or you're riding in shallow waters, ankles, as Greg had mentioned about Dana earlier. Very real instances that can occur. So there's lots of, you know, informed instructors that are going to help you get through this. So
hey, can I make a comment really quick, Dreads?
The parts of
Dreads, can I make a quick comment? Just so the people are listening know, this brief is going on at the exact same time that the safety brief is going on. So it's different audiences. So there's going to be a little bit of repetition here. But Dreads is talking to the participants and Greg is talking to all the water volunteers. So that's why you might hear a little bit of the same thing being told. And the reason you're hearing this is because as a red shirt, you could be giving this brief. I could pull you aside and say, hey, I need you to give the dryland surf instruction brief or the safety brief. Sorry, Dreads, I didn't mean to interrupt, but.
Did I lose you guys there?
No, you're good.
You're good.
All right. Okay. About now.
You're good.
I don't have you guys on my speaker, so can I get a thumbs up if you can hear me?
We can hear you.
So essentially, we're going to go over the parts of a surfboard. For the people who haven't been here or it's first time surfing. Essentially, this is an SSR board that we got right here. This is going to be the nose of your board, okay? This is the deck right here. We got the tail, which on the back is always distinguished by your fin. Some boards you're going to have a stringer down the middle. It gives you a little bit of rocker. It supports the deck. Tippy. These are your rails. All right, so now that we got all of the parts of the board out, we're going to go about with how we're going to start off when we're in the water while we're laying down, paddling, trying to catch our first wave as it goes from phase to phase. So you want to try, and your instructor's always going to help you with this, but you always want to try to have your feet close towards the end of the board, not hanging over. So this would be too far with your feet hanging off. I don't know if you guys can see. Like this. So your instructor's going to help you. We're going to say, we're coming into a wave. He's going to tell you to start paddling gently. You want to always make sure if this nose is down, to back up a little bit, and it's all relative to the board you're on. Some boards are longer or wider and have more stability. First step is always going to be to push up. Second step, push up, depending on whether you're a regular foot or goofy. Knee forward. Step 1, step 2, or for some people, step 1, step 2. One, two, and you want to turn your body and stay low center of gravity. This is going to help you from falling over. We like to say hands, feet, knees, bend your knees and look at the trees. You want to be looking towards all the trees and the houses on the beach. That's where all the fun is, going that way. All right. A lot of times when you get up and you're riding the wave and you get unstable, you're always going to want to try and fall off the best possible way. Essentially, that can be as either rolling over, or if you're standing, sometimes just leaning back. Water is your friend. It's going to break you fall. You know, the instructors are not going to advise you to jump off a board in shallow water. So one thing to remember is wherever your eyes are going is where the board is going to go. So if you're on that wave and you're looking at houses, you're going that way. But if you're looking at all the people to the side of you having fun, you're going right after them. Sorry for all technical challenges here this morning. So one of the things is we'll always try to be in only waist-high water. You know, we try to avoid keeping people out of their comfort zone. And the best way for us to instruct with these waves is in waist-high water where the white water is. So Greg alluded to this early. Your board should really only be pointing one direction, either out towards the water or in towards the shore, because when it's sideways like this, wave catches it, knocks you over, busts teeth, nose. It's happened to me before. It happens to the best of us. So one of the things to always keep in mind is that when you do fall off your board, you always want to try to come up protecting your head. Because when you're underwater, you have no idea where this board is. You could come up, and next thing you know, it's right at your face. So always come up with some protection once you're out of the water to help push a board away in the event that it's coming towards you. If you happen to, you know, score that first epic wave, your very first try, and you go all the way into the beach, you're going to turn that board around and go right back. So the shore break tends to be where all the problems exist, because there's lots of, you know, breaking white water that's throwing boards, knocking people over, you're losing balance, you jump off, you know, that white water pushes the sand out from underneath your feet. So those transition periods are the most difficult, where you need to pay attention, especially as an instructor. So if you see, you know, your participant getting off and then just like having their, you know, their back away from the water, always tell them to keep their eye on the ocean. You don't ever want to turn your back on the ocean if you don't have to. I mean, sometimes it does occur, but that is where most problems, because if you don't see it coming, you know, that's where the issues are going to be. So minimize your times and transitions. Always remember, the best surfer in the water is the one having the most fun. Very important. Always pay attention to safety. We as instructors don't know everything at all times. I mean, we have, you know, we pay attention to as much as possible. There's always going to be someone there who knows something else. Pay attention, ask questions, as Randy, Steve, Justin, Greg, always ask. If you don't know, always ask, and you're always going to have someone that is a valuable resource around you. So most importantly, safety, hands, feet, knees, bend your knees, look at the trees. Don't be on the wrong side of the board, pay attention, and most of all, have fun. I think that was my 8 minutes.
All right, thanks a lot, Dred. So this is something that we want to get our instructors involved in, is giving this class. And we're not going to spring it on you at the last minute. We're not going to be at the beach on Saturday morning and all of a sudden, hey, we need somebody to give the class. All right, Jacob, go ahead and give this class. I mean, we'll tell you in advance and let you practice. I mean, at the beach, it's going to be windy. You really won't even be able to use notes at the beach. You're going to have to go out there and do this from memory. So you might just remember the main points so that you can get through this this section. Another thing to be aware of is that 75% of the people that you're giving this class to have seen it about 10 times from 10 different people. So that's why you asked the question at the beginning, is this, how many people here is surfing for the first time? Or how many people have surfed with us before? Almost everybody will raise their hand. You're really tailoring the briefing to the people that haven't surfed before. And one thing that you can do is you can bring one of them up and have them do the demonstration on the board. As you kind of talk about it, you can have them laying on the board and going through the motions. So that's very helpful too. And it gets them involved and they learn a little bit more from that. But it's one of the hardest things that we'll ever ask you to do is give this brief. And we'll give you some advanced heads up so that you'll be ready for it when you do. But if it's something that you want to do, let us know and we'll get you into the schedule the next time we do a clinic. We've had some questions about COVID and COVID procedures. You know, this is going to be a very different topic at different beaches. Every single location has different requirements, but the bottom line is we aren't going to do anything that's going to put our participants or our volunteers at risk. So we're going to try to make sure that we do everything correctly. And so right now we do have some COVID procedures on our website, but what it is the clinics are not going to look anything at all like they've looked at in the past. So we're not really covering that right now because we're covering for when things go back to normal and we have these big clinics with 30 participants and 100 volunteers at the beach. And that's when, you know, wearing the red shirt is really, really important because you've got a lot of responsibility there. But right now, as we get permission to hold limited number of clinics, we may be going to the beach with just 3 participants and just 10 volunteers. And so we're restricted on the numbers that we are allowed to have at the beach. And then during that time, we practice social distancing and a lot of different types of safety things that we do to prevent the spread of disease. And of course, we screen everybody that's involved before to make sure that they haven't had contact with anybody that has tested positive. So that's kind of just a quick overview of that. It's almost not applicable to this class right now because we're really going to wait till we get back to the beach to finish this up and do the beach portion of our training. So we have a couple little things we're going to go over on our time. That's okay. We've Zoom has allowed us to go a little bit over. I try to keep it right to 3 hours, but it looks like we're going to go a little bit over. I've got one thing that I want to show you right now. It's kind of a practical application. I'm going to show you a quick little video. I'm going to pause it and then ask for your inputs on what you saw. Think of this: you're wearing a red shirt, you're at the beach, and so let's see if this works here. I'm going to go to the share screen and all right, so you should be seeing a black screen right now with a video.
Looks good.
Let's see, and it should be playing right now. Instructor scenarios?
Yes.
So you saw a surfer going down and then you saw him fall, and now you're the red shirt. You've got a couple of white shirts with you. What do you do? Now that was just an example. Now we're going to start this scenario by scenario. Does that make sense? Is everybody seeing that?
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and play the next one. In that case, what happened was the board was on top of the person who fell off. So they fell off the board. The board went underneath. We say, go for the person and forget about the board. In this case, you really couldn't go for the person and forget about the board because the board was on top of the person. So that was a unique scenario, but that was just to get you guys in the process of thinking about this. And not every one of these is going to be a wipeout. Some of these are just going to be you're watching, and what kind of things would you tell this participant to give them coaching tips or anything like that. So the whole gamut. All right. So what did you guys see there? Any coaching tips or comments?
Justin, how about what's next? Looks super comfortable on the board, ready to like progress in what they're doing.
Yeah, Norm, that was really exactly what you want to see for somebody, you know, getting comfortable on the surfboard. They rode it all the way in. There was nothing really unsafe there. Once they got onto the sand, they rolled off perfectly. So now you're going to, you know, congratulate them, help them get up, and talk to them about the next step. You're gonna, you know, do you want to try to get on your knees on the next wave, something like that. And here's, so the volunteer comes and gives her hand up, and, you know, high fives. All right, here's another one. Okay, what anybody see anything worth commenting on there? What kind of participant is this?
Spinal cord?
Probably a paralyzed spinal cord. He's got a helmet on. He's laying down, and the instructor's on the board with him, and they're going pretty fast into the sand there. So, now that you know that, any comments or recommendations? All right, let's see what happens here. Okay, so in that case, nothing really happened, but what I would say is, as you ride into the sand, you've got somebody that's paralyzed. You're probably gonna want to keep them on the board, keep them positioned, because that's the easiest thing to do. So you're gonna probably back them back out, use the waves to help get the board back out. So as the water comes in, it floats the board, and then you back it out, and then you kind of keep it pointing exactly like Greg said, either towards the beach or towards the water. So you're waiting for a good chance, a break in the waves, to turn the board around so it's now facing back out to the water.
Yeah, if I could just make one, that's an excellent example of what you would be doing with someone that's mobility challenged. This is why I wear a wetsuit when the water temperature is like 80 in La Jolla, is I actually use my knees to dig into the sand when I'm riding on the back of the board to prevent the board from going all the way up to the lifeguard station. Because what you don't want to get stuck with is someone that's going to basically be staying on the board, and now you need 7 people to dislodge them from the wet sand to pull them backward. So if you could stop that board a little bit earlier than going all the way in, the better you are, and the more runs, the more you know, surfing we can get in. So just a little instructor tip.
That is an example of something that looks perfectly normal, but a more experienced instructor would point some things out like that. So in this case, you're also seeing another person that's got a spinal cord injury. They're sitting on the board, the instructor's on the back, and they're riding in. And she does exactly what Greg is talking about, but she didn't get her stopped in time, and there was somebody on the beach to actually go in and stop the board from going up too far on the beach, so that they could back them out and get them in the water quicker.
As
using
we know,
your helpers to stop them, you know, like tell them in advance, you know, try to stop the board before it beaches helps too, because sometimes if the waves are a little bit gnarly, you as the instructor, sometimes you'll get shaken off the back of the board, and then they're just zooming towards the shore, and your helpers can help save you.
Yeah, that's a good point, Eric. But I want to say, that's the exception to the rule. The normal rule for people that aren't mobility challenged, you want to let them ride as far as they possibly can. And I get really mad when I see water helpers that are coming to help, and their intentions are good, but they're grabbing the board as the people are going by, and it's still, you know, knee deep water. They're still riding. I'm like, let them finish their rides. You know, this is one of the best days of their lives, and they're on the way riding, and somebody's grabbing the front of their board while they're going by, and that is not something we want to see. But there are exceptions to that rule, and this is it right here. So
how do participants do with going backwards? Is that something that is a little scarier to do that, like going back into the surf?
not really. A lot of times it's even better because as the waves are coming up over the board, they're not going in their face. They're just kind of going on their back a little bit. So it's another good time to mention that when I have a group of volunteers, I usually put my best, strongest surfer on the dry sand, standing there at the very end of the ride, because you have to know how to turn the board around quickly. You have to be aware of the waves that are coming in. That is something that takes a lot of knowledge and practice and wave awareness. So you would think that the best surfer would be in the deepest water with you. Well, I don't need him there. I can get him on a wave myself. I need him if I'm letting the surfer ride in by themselves. I definitely need them on the turnaround. So that's something to think about. Where do you want to put your talent as you have your white shirts?
And you know what? I'm going to add one more thing to that, Justin. Sometimes I rotate my team too, because when you're that one person at the end doing the turnaround, it's definitely the most physically taxing of having to do stuff. So if you kind of do rotate your team a little bit, even if you have a main person that stays towards on the beach, it kind of breaks up I guess the physical part of the turnaround.
Yeah, that's a good point. Question, can you guys see these videos okay? Because last time we did a video, they were really rough. Okay, good. I'm glad.
No, these are working good.
All right, so here's another one. All right, so the surfer came off, the instructor had let go. The surfer was in between the water helpers and the beach and came off. So what should the water helpers do right here?
Go for the participant.
Go to the participant, yeah.
Yes.
Right, and you would be surprised at how many times they go for the board. Watch this.
Oh. No. Nice. Cool.
Go for the participant.
Right.
All right, here's another one.
Yep.
That's the way to do it right there. Make sure your participants know that. You could never let your guard down. All right, what do you guys see there?
Face plant.
Yeah,
a neck injury.
Yeah.
So this person is like just got the ride. They're in like 2 inches of water and they think it's all over, and then all of a sudden the brakes come on and face plant. So the instructor's on the back of the board here. So imagine that is you. You're the red shirt on the back of the board, and you're just like, this is awesome. And then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, what just happened? So let's watch how Dennis handles this. So Dennis is, very positive. He picks her up. He, gives her a hand. She's got a smile on her face. That's a good indication. And he's, all right, good job. Are you all right? Let's do it again. And so really no problem. But he kept a hold of her ankle as she fell off. So she felt that he was there with her, and she was not scared. So that's a good thing. If you can maintain contact, that's helpful. And obviously, wipeouts are part of it. So, you know, enjoy that part of it too. And all right. All right, any comments there?
I couldn't tell, but it looked like he was trying to steer around the other person who was going back out. So there's a little bit of traffic there. And if that makes the instructor have to navigate, you know, that instructor with the person on the board should be the right of way or the focus for sure.
Absolutely. Great observation, Connor. I thought I was going to have to give that one to you guys. As surfers know, surf etiquette is the surfer riding the wave has the right of way. So people that are going back out to the lineup are supposed to watch them and be aware of them and stay out of their way, get out of their way. In this case, there was a water volunteer that was just sitting there, fat, dumb, and happy, bringing a huge board out to the lineup and right in front of this instructor who was on the board and with the participant. And so they actually did steer around them, but because of that, they went off the back of the wave and kind of stalled there. The water wasn't too deep, and then he fell off. But in this case, I don't know if you could notice it or not, but the surfer was kneeling on the back of the board, and he was way, way far back, center of gravity wise. The nose of the board was way high on that, and that also caused them to come off of the wave. So for coaching tips there, this is very common, but people have their feet near the back of the board, like Dreads was saying, and they go from hands to knees, and they don't move their knees. They keep their knees right where they were when their feet were off the back of the board. And now all of a sudden, all their weight is, 2 feet from the very tail of a 10-foot long board, and their center of gravity is way too far back. So I tell people for a coaching tip, as you go to your knees, bring your knees forward so that you can maintain center of gravity on the board and continue to ride the wave. You'll see that a lot. So that's a coaching tip that you could apply there. All right, let's look at another. Anybody see anything there? Go ahead,
I didn't
Noah.
see a red shirt with the participant.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, who just said that? Colby?
Colby just said.
Yeah. Where was the red shirt? Good question. All right.
He's walking the thing back to the lineup.
where?
And it appeared that the white shirt was paying more attention to a conversation than to the athlete they're supposed to be working with.
Yes. Good. Anything?
If they were checking in with her, maybe to bring her in and not stand in the white water, like if they were checking, are you dehydrated? There may have been a conversation there, but I think it should have been in a safer spot. That was a great spot.
And you noticed that something was not right with her, didn't you?
Yeah, so.
What just happened there, do you think?
Well, her headband was on her neck, so she definitely went tumbling a little bit. She looked a little disoriented when she got up. So definitely something to check before you start immediately going back out to catch the next wave, is to make sure that they're okay. Right. They want to go out again.
She just wiped out, and she is looking very disoriented and actually a little bit frightened and experiencing some PTSD symptoms, I would say. And the white shirt, first, there's no red shirt there. The white shirt is basically trying to push her back out in the water, and she's like looking back to the beach like she doesn't want to go back into the water. You can tell from her body language, she's like, I need a break. He doesn't know. I mean, he's just there. He's a guy that showed up at the beach and, went through a Greg's safety brief, and now he's out there having a good time. But so he's not the one that really should be making that decision. I was just standing there. I wasn't the instructor. I was catching some video on this, and I noticed it, and I could tell that something was wrong, and I went up and kind of helped her out, and so but yeah, so that's something you want to be watch out for. And where was her instructor? Her instructor was probably trying to chase down the board or something like that, which, you know, you're wearing the red shirt. Your responsibility is the student, not the surfboard. The white shirt gets the surfboard.
Also a good, one of the points I missed in my safety chat was remind the volunteers, the instructors, everyone, there's only one instructor, and that's the red shirt. If you have a participant or an athlete that's trying to listen to multiple sets of advice, it's not going to help them. So just remind your team that you have, say, hey, if you see my surfer do something, especially if they're transitioning from lying down to standing up, and I've let them go, and now I'm, 20 yards away, tell me what's going on so I can have a one-to-one relationship with my participant. It's easier for the student, participant, athlete to hear from one source.
Yeah, that's a great point, Greg. I often will let a surfer go in and looks from the back like everything went right, but for some reason they fell off, and I'll come in and I'll ask the white shirts that were right by there, say, did you notice anything? What happened? What can I tell them to make it work better next time? So I'm, ask them for help also as you use your resources that you have in your eyes.
Also, back to one of Randy's comments, I think it was Randy. I've had surfers that are literally blue. They are freezing, they're chattering, and they're like, I want to go again, I want to go again. It's always up to the instructor to say, hey, you know what? I'm getting cold. Let's just take a break. So you got to constantly be checking in. And if you're dealing with paraplegic, quadriplegics, you have to be checking their temperature all the time, because they're not as good at gauging just how cold they are. Check their extremity temperature. I'm always sneaking my fingers, hands under their edge of their wetsuit on their hands. I'm like, hey, I'm just checking your temperature. Anytime I engage someone, I'm telling them why I'm touching them. Hey, I'm going to stabilize you by putting my hand on your back. Is that okay? The gentleman that we just talked about is a Navy corpsman, okay?
Yeah,
he
I know.
Probably is now hyper aware of any touching. So I always, if I'm touching someone, if I'm with someone and they look like they're in any way, shape, or form disoriented, tired, confused, I always say, hey, can I help? Let's go sit down for a while. I always try to be within arm's length if I can. And my rule for my team is I want someone at that participant no less than 3 seconds. So if I have a highly challenged someone, I have more volunteers. I guarantee people, we're going to have fun if you feel safe, and you're going to feel safe if you have someone around you that can get to you quickly. So just kind of keep that in the back of your head when you're out there managing your surfer.
All right, let's go through what happened here. We talked about this.
Yeah.
The other thing is, why is she wearing sunglasses? Like those Ray-Ban aviators, not the best thing to surf in, I don't think.
No.
A lot of people do that though. This is just about getting out to the lineup. I'm going to skip it because
we call that the bucking bronco, by the way. So a lot of our boards have handles in the middle, and those are the ones I prefer to use when we do a sitting participant. And I don't know, it was 8 years ago or 9 years ago, we had a gentleman that we figured out. I know Steve was there in New York when we were surfing with this dude. Couldn't lie down, couldn't get into a comfortable thing. And then I don't know who came up with it, but it might have been Mark Schmidt. We had boards with handles, right? They're stand-up paddle boards. So literally someone said, oh, grab it. Now you're bucking bronco. Put your arm back when you do, have some fun out there. So don't be afraid to get creative, as long as everyone is, magic word, safe.
Yeah. All right. So this is a great ride here. This guy's a paraplegic, and he's big, and he is wheelchair bound, and he is riding this wave. He's having a great time. He's almost all the way into shore, and just the second that you let your guard down, this is going to happen.
Oh.
And he is not going to be able to get up by himself. He will drown if nobody picks him up. And Dennis is right there getting him head up, and then that's a great way to hold people in the waves. All right, this is the last one.
Oh.
You're the red shirt. This guy just came in on his knees and did a header in about 6 inches of water. What are your thoughts right now?
So okay, I keep want to raise my hand here, but I'll let someone else chime in.
Yeah, I did.
I feel like that would be a good moment to take a moment to sit on the shore and do a check that he's okay.
Yes, thank you, Sarah. Woo! Gold star for the forehead. You know what? Always want to check in. Also review the bailing techniques, onboarding, offboarding, which is a business term, not a surfing term. He fell off the board incorrectly. Now he might have felt like he got ejected, but review with your athlete. Hey, I saw you take remember, I'm going to guarantee you one thing. We're going to definitely get wet. We're going to definitely have fun as long as we're safe. He kind of bailed inappropriately. Just remind your surfer, hey, if you feel like you're unstable, go to a knee, lie down on the board. If you feel like you're falling, put your butt in the water first. Don't dive off. I've seen that. I know Randy cringes every single time she sees someone dive into the water and 0.3 inches of water. Just scary as heck. Review with your surfer. Again, like to Justin's point, these people are super excited to be out there. They make decisions maybe they regret afterwards about how they fall off the board. Just remind them, roll one way or the other. Make sure your butt goes in first. All those kind of fun things.
Yeah, that was I mean, it was definitely something with balance and PTSD. And I mean, this person didn't put their hands up at all when they went head first over. So I mean, they're definitely somebody that needs to be taken care of and watched closely. Just when you think everything's going perfect, somebody's going to do something like that. That surfer ended up scraping his forehead and had a slight abrasion on his forehead, but fortunately no neck or spine injuries from that dive, but it could have been a lot worse. So these are some fun things that we get to do as instructors, and basically that's going to wrap everything up. We don't have time for the final exam. I know you guys are pretty bummed out, but what I will do is I'll quickly go over the test, and we can kind of go over the answers and see how well you guys did. Let's see if I can find it.
While you're doing that, how about we just jump to question 1?
Yeah, good idea.
Who is the best surfer in the water?
Steve.
Not at all.
One having the most fun.
Exactly. And that is a fun thing, at the welcome that we used to end with is literally ask everybody that question. Now everyone seems to know it, but it always is good for the new folks to kind of hear. They're not going to, most of them would say Justin, but it's not. It's whoever's having the most fun. And I think we first learned that from Justin's signature on his email, because that's what it says. So it is so true. Okay, the second, do you have I don't know if you're going to pull it up or not.
Yeah, it's not coming up, but I'll just read it, because the second one was, what are the 3 requirements to wear the red rash guard? So let's ask the students to answer this. So let me just pick one. Colby, I see you. What are the 3 requirements, Colby? And you're muted. There you go.
Well, so you have to have taken the instructor class. You have to have your participant, and you have to be kind of caring for them, always watchful for them. One of the more technical things is you have to be CPR certified.
Yeah.
You have to make sure they're having fun.
Yeah. So you almost got that right. You got
2 out of 3.
Yeah. The
So
other
close.
one that we were looking for, does anybody want, Connor, do you want to help him? It's from the website. All right, I'll just tell you that does any students know the answer before I tell you?
You have to be
Oh,
You
go ahead.
Participate.
Yeah, participate in 2 AmpSurf clinics.
Yeah, you have to be an instructor under training for 2 clinics after you've done this course, and you have your now the Red Cross certification. I would get that last because it's only good for 2 years. So after you've done the 2 clinics helping out as a kind of an instructor under training, that would be the time to get that Red Cross certification, CPR, first aid for adults and children. All right. Good job. Next question is, who's the founder of AmpSurf? Let's see, Brian. Who is the founder? Yeah, question.
Dana Cummings, is that right?
Right. You got it. Okay, next question is, where and when did AmpSurf start? Kate.
I think it was Pismo Beach, California in 2003.
Absolutely, good job. All right, next question is, what country won the 2020 Adaptive Surfing Championships? And let's see, Connor, do you know that one?
Well, I think it was us with AmpSurf being a sponsoring member, right?
Well, AmpSurf was definitely a big winner because we were the sponsors, but America did not win that. It was another country. We got second place, though.
Actually, that's a trick question.
See.
That's a trick question, Justin, because although the event occurred in March of 2020, it was considered the 2019 AmpSurf ISA. Yeah.
That's weird.
So who was the country again?
I think it was Spain. Didn't Spain? No. Who?
France.
No, it was Spain.
Was it Spain?
Yeah, it's on Magic Seaweed still. That huge article is still on Magic Seaweed. But
you're right.
Yeah, that really wasn't any of your homework. So but it is a big accomplishment that AmpSurf has done over the last year. So that's why I put it in the test. We didn't really have any homework associated with it. But if you are a red shirt for AmpSurf, you should know that a big part of what we are doing now is this adaptive world championship. So that's why that was in there. Let's see. Next question is, where are the 4 AmpSurf chapter locations? Let's go with Jason. All right, I got to unmute you, Jason, or you got to unmute yourself.
Sorry, Justin. I know there's one in Pismo Beach. We've got a New England chapter. I know there's New York, I think like Rockaway Beach area.
Yep.
And I think you mentioned earlier in the meeting today something about the Northwestern chapter starting up around Oregon or so.
Good job, Jason. You nailed it. California, New England, New York, and the Pacific Northwest are the answers for that. All right, let's see what's next here. All right, Sarah, do you have to be an amputee to participate in an AmpSurf clinic?
No, that's false.
That is false, correct. Okay, Natalia, I keep on messing up your name. I'm sorry about that. Do you have to be a veteran to participate in the VA summer sports clinics? Natalia, you got to unmute.
You stepped away from the camera.
Okay. Dylan, are you there, Dylan? This is a softball, you guys. Definitely want this question. Dylan, yeah, do you have to be a veteran to participate in the VA summer sports clinic?
I just joined in at the end. I don't think so.
You what?
I just joined in at the end here. I was the one who emailed you about the Pacific.
Yeah. Okay.
But I don't think so.
Well, you do as a participant. It's actually pretty hard to get into that, but volunteers don't have to be veterans, so I'll give you partial credit for that.
Okay, gotcha.
All right. What does PIER stand for? Let's see. Anybody can, whoever wants to, can volunteer to answer that.
Inspire, educate.
Promote.
Like the mission.
Inspire.
Yep.
Promote, inspire, educate, and rehabilitate.
Yep.
That's it.
Right
Good
on.
job. All right. So Carly Rogers in the TED Talk, the goal of her study was that every participant will become a surfer. Is that true or false?
No.
False.
False, yeah.
And then from the TED Talk, she started out with the question, why do they run? What was she talking about there?
They run to get to the beach.
Yeah, the draw of the ocean. They're trying to feel that draw of the ocean. They're getting pulled out there, basically, is what she said. Just the stoke of the ocean and flow that surfing gives people. It's one of the sports that has a lot of just great flow to it. All right, question number 12. From Brett Cotter's 3 Keys to Managing PTSD, was the answer A, B, or C, or D? Just shout out if you can remember what you put.
I wrote C.
That is correct. So learn how to stop the stress reaction, process the trauma, and meditate daily are the 3 keys to PTSD. And question number 13 is, which statement about the PTSD Score Card is not true? A, B, C, or D? Anybody?
Delta, I don't think it's only 12 times a year, right?
No, it is designed for 12 times a year. It's a year-long process. Do it once a month. It's a scorecard. But that is one of the things that it's for. Anybody else got a guess?
I put C.
Yeah, C. So diagnostic tool, that means it's not something that a doctor is going to look at and use to come up with a diagnosis. It's more of a treatment tool. It's part of a plan. So it's not used to diagnose PTSD. It's used to treat it. So that's the difference there. And it actually says in the book, this is not a diagnostic tool. So it's kind of a nitpicky question, and I apologize, but that's to understand. Dana was talking about it on the virtual clinic that, he had PTSD, and he is one of the guys that has gone through this process for the entire 12 months and done this 12 times. And it's very helpful to do it over time like that. So question number 14 is about PTSD triggers mentioned in the workbook. So things that were mentioned, one of these was not mentioned in the workbook, and the choices are unexpected loud noises, interacting with authority figures, being around large crowds, waiting in lines, being immersed in water. One of those was not mentioned in the workbook.
Being immersed in water.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Actually, being immersed in water is probably, as long as it's calm water, is probably one of the things that's the opposite of a PTSD trigger. It's one of the things that calms people. But if you look at the list of things, that pretty much describes an AmpSurf clinic, loud noises, authority figures, large crowds, waiting. So be sympathetic of people that do have PTSD and understand that those are the kind of things that will set them off. So if you have a surfer that does have PTSD, try to minimize that kind of thing. So
Justin,
the next question, yeah,
wait,
go ahead.
Justin, just before you move on, it's important to recognize that if somebody's trauma was water related, then being immersed would absolutely be a trigger. It's just a matter of if it wasn't, then it could be a really soothing environment.
Yeah, good point, Norm. I appreciate that clarification. That's absolutely true. And for the most part, I mean, I don't think I've ever known or asked what caused your PTSD as a surfer on the beach. You know, as an instructor, it's usually something that I'm not going to know. But as almost in every one of the conditions and disabilities briefings, you communicate with your surfer and you say, hey, is there anything that I need to know? And if they say, yeah, I've got PTSD because I was in a Navy ship that sank, you know, maybe surf therapy is not the best thing for you to be doing. But, you know, maybe it is, who knows? Anyways, moving on. Question number 15 was, for an AmpSurf instructor, what is the most important key to managing PTSD and why? So it doesn't say the answer to this in the book. This is really just a question that asks you to think about what you know about PTSD keys and kind of come up with what you think is the most important and then defend it. Let's see. Kid, it looks like you're raising your hand because the thing behind you looks like it's giving me a peace sign.
This thing, it's an ant.
Yeah, it looks like a hand.
I said communication because, you know, a lot of the things that we've talked about are preemptive communication. So everyone's on the same page, everyone knows what's coming next. So if you have the ability to communicate and lay out exactly what's going to happen to the best of your ability, that just makes sure that everyone has a way to predict what's going to happen and try to reduce as many triggers as possible.
That's very true, but that's not one of Brett's keys to PTSD. So the 3 keys were what?
Oh, the 3 keys were meditation.
Yeah. Process the trauma.
Process the trauma.
And stop the stress reaction or something like that. So what do you think of those 3 as the most important?
Stop the reaction for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Number 1. Yeah.
Because that's, I mean, the rest of the stuff is more long-term treatment, and this is right. You know, point of service. You know, you want to be able to notice them starting to get stressed out and be able to stop them with the stress.
The kid's point
breath works
is key. If you have a student or a participant who's experiencing some sort of trauma, communication is absolutely the key. So I would give her extra credit for that.
Oh yeah, she's right on. Okay, wrapping it up here. Phantom pain refers to what disability or condition?
Limb loss.
Limb loss, yeah.
Right. Adaptive surfers with this disability may need a helmet.
TBI.
Correct. That's what it says in the manual. Some people would argue that we probably all need helmets. Number 18, we talked about plastic grocery bags can help your surfer, and we've said this over and over again through the clinic. So putting on the getting wetsuits on and off, especially for people with spinal cord injuries or amputations or paralyzed, people that are paralyzed. Booties, for this type of surfer, you should check feet for injuries and use booties.
Any sensory impairment?
Spinal injuries.
Yeah. Yeah, so people that can't feel their feet, so people that are paraplegic or have, you know, spinal cord injuries, definitely. So these are the hardest people to get wetsuits on, and wetsuits are most important for them, and same with booties because it protects them. It gives them another layer of protection. So and then if it's hot out, they put a wetsuit on to protect their legs, and then they're sitting on the beach in the sun. Then we got to worry about dehydration. So there's lots of things to think about in that case. The last question was list the 8 conditions or disabilities in the manual, and we don't need to do that because that's what we've been talking about all the time. I appreciate you guys' time and patience. We went over 40 minutes, and but I think it was a good class. Does anybody have any comments before I let you guys go?
Excellent job, Justin. Are you going to be sending us a feedback sheet, or would you just like to be text or emailed any feedback?
I will email a request for some feedback, and and we'll get some feedback on how to make this better. This is the first time we've done it this way, and so we definitely probably have some room for improvement. But look forward to seeing you guys all on the beach to top this training off. What we'll do is some wheelchair transfers, and then getting people out in the water on surfboards, and then turning them around, getting them on waves. We'll do some riding where you're pushing them into waves, also some tandem riding where you're riding on the board with them, and you're going to be riding on with the instructors. And then we'll, let's see, I think that's about it. So once we've done that, then we just need to get you through a couple of clinics, and then you'll be wearing the red shirt. So thank you so much. This is going to be, we're going to do another one of these later on this summer for the West Coast. But I think it was pretty successful, and look forward to hearing your comments about how we can make it better. Everybody have a great Sunday, and we will hopefully see you on the beach.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Awesome.
Thank
Nice
you.
to meet
Awesome
everyone.
job. Thank you.
Hey, Ann, are you still there?
Yeah.
Could you email me your phone number? Did you hear me? Oh, I think you cut us off.
Yes, I did. Sorry, I had to unmute myself. I will. I'll do that on my email, John. Okay.
Just, yeah, do you know my email, jwrsurf@AOL?
Okay. Or I could even do it right through here privately. Will that work?
If we can do it, yeah.
Yeah. Let's see if we're still on. Okay. I'll do it.
I have your email. I don't have your phone number. I want to have that in my phone.
Here. Just sent it.
Keep it up there. I lost it.
Oh, okay. I can do it through your email. Don't worry. No
Okay.
worries. I'll send it
Thanks.
over. Okay.
Thanks a lot. Okay, ciao.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Let's, man, I want to give it a.
Yeah, he went over by 4.
Satara, I'm sorry that I didn't get you more involved in the class. I actually didn't even have your registration, but I'm sure that you registered. So we will, I know that we were going to try to work on figuring out a way to develop this course to, so that you could train up some instructors in Iran. And are you the one that runs the program there?
I'm actually the vice president of Iran Surfing Association. So it would be great that we can have a cooperation, and in the near future we can just involve in the AmpSurf ISA in the near future. And thank you for running this. I will send an email to you to figure out the donation and other things.
Okay, great. It's good meeting you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Mohammed. Bye, Abraham.
Thank you so much for this class. Thank you for everything. Goodbye.
Goodbye. See you, Rock.
See you, buddy. Thanks a lot.
All right.